Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Today is Monday, April 22nd, 2024. It is also the day we celebrate Earth Day, so happy Earth Day to everyone. As is our tradition, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Welcome. It's nice to see everyone. My name is John Kafalis, Larimer County Commissioner Chair from District 1. I'm joined by my commissioner colleagues, Kristen Stevens from District 2 and Jody Shattuck McNally from District 3. We also have our Assistant County Attorney 3, Frank Haug, from our County Attorney's Office, and Bill Rousseau from our County Attorney's Office. Tonight, our topic is the Thornton 1041 permit application, Section F. I think at this time, so we have one item tonight, discussion item. We'll talk about the procedures and how we hope to conduct our business this evening. And again, it's great that there's such a good turnout. At this time, it would be more than appropriate to turn it over to Rebecca, who could introduce her team. And then I will explain the process, and I can fill in the blanks if we need to. Thank you, Rebecca.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Everett, Community Development Director. I'm joined up here tonight by John Barnett, our Environmental Planner, as well as Jenny Axmaker, our Planning Manager. We have other staff throughout the room, including Leah Schneider from Health, Stephen Rothwell from Engineering, Christine Luckison with our County Attorney's Office, as well as some administrative staff that's supporting and other staff available for questions as needed. We respectfully request that all members of the audience please silence your electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions, which are located to the right of the hearing room entrance, as well as online on the Commissioner's website. Please wait to speak until you are recognized by the chair. We ask that everyone maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether in support or against. Please make comments directly to the Board of County Commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available as needed. Please state your name at the beginning of any comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that everyone here in the hearing room, as well as those who are online, can hear. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices that are available for the hearing impaired. For those who are viewing this hearing on Zoom, you will be muted until you are recognized by the chair. If you wish to speak during the public comment period, please use the raise hand function at that time. A couple other items that I want to note. We do recognize that tonight is the first night of Passover, and so we have modified some of our procedures, which we will hit on when I provide an overview of procedures in the staff presentation, but wanted to make that note at the beginning here. Finally, if the Board of County Commissioners has a legal question during the hearing, they may elect to go into executive session with the county attorney. Executive sessions are private meetings where the board can get confidential legal advice. So rather than asking everyone in attendance to exit the hearing room, if an executive session is called, the board would relocate to a smaller private room at that time. That concludes my brief overview of procedures, and there's more to come in the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And before I provide a little bit more detail about the procedures for this evening and any potential subsequent hearing nights, I do want to state that the matter at hand, the issue at hand, is the Thornton Water Project Segment F 1041 permit, file number 23-Zone 3584. And when we get to our staff presentation, I'm sure that John will explain what the request is and get into the details. To build on what Rebecca said, in acknowledgement that this is the first night of Passover, an oversight on our part, but it's sometimes hard to figure out how to schedule these things. And I believe Passover officially begins after sundown. So in light of that, here's what we've decided to do this evening. First of all, we'll have the staff presentation, and we've allotted or allocated up to 45 minutes for those of you who may have participated or listened to the Planning Commission hearing. You know that John did not take 45 minutes, up to 45 minutes, but he has that option to provide the details of the staff report. Secondly, of course, we would have the applicant, the folks from the city of Thornton, and respectfully, we're asking you to keep your comments up to 45 minutes, as we did at the Planning Commission. And I will leave it to your discretion, friends and colleagues, where you want to focus in terms of review criteria, which of course is most critical. And then I know there was some reference to the community benefits package. But ultimately, that is your call, how you want to use your 45 minutes. So if you're still tracking what I'm trying to explain, then once the applicant presents, then we will open it up for public comment. We will open it up for public comment based on the number of folks who have signed up. We've increased the individual time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. So folks, if they need it, do have 3 minutes. And then depending on how many people there are and where we are in the evening, we will not close public comment. We want to allow people who may have wanted to participate tonight, but because it's Passover, we want them to have an opportunity to provide public comment on May 6th, which is the next hearing date. So whether it's 10 o'clock or sooner, we will keep public comment open. All of the questions, as is similar to the Planning Commission hearing, we will hold back our questions. We are going to practice our listening skills this evening. We're taking copious notes. When we return on Monday, Monday, May 6th, then we will continue with public comment. We'll close public comment. And then, of course, the applicants would have an opportunity. I believe we've said 30 minutes to offer rebuttal. And then at that time, after rebuttal, we would ask questions of staff, we would ask questions of the applicant, and certainly if there's any new information or new evidence, then of course we would allow the applicants to respond to that if those questions come up based on new evidence. So I do hope that is clear. Tonight, we're going to listen, we're going to take notes, we're not going to ask any questions. We'll have opportunity for the applicants, for the staff presentation, for public comment. We'll come back in 2 weeks, continue public comment, and kind of go from there. And the goal would be ideally to be done in 2 nights. But as you all know, we do also have May 8th, and I don't think we need to go beyond May 8th, if indeed we need to use May 8th for deliberation. So, Rebecca, did I miss anything or perhaps not explain anything as clearly as I could have?
No, I think that covers it. Thank you.
So I hope, you can nod or something. I hope that makes sense to folks what I just tried to describe. So with that, enough talking. I should put on my listening now, and we'll turn it over to John Barnett, and we'll get into the presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Commissioners. And actually, I'll kick off the presentation before I pass it over to John here. I want to start with some context setting about 1041 regulations, provide a little bit of information that sets the stage for John's presentation of the application itself. So first, briefly, I want to describe what 1041 regulations are. It's a bit of a technical name for a set of regulations that essentially give local governments the authority to regulate matters of statewide concern. And this includes regional transportation infrastructure, utility infrastructure, transmission lines, solar facilities, and other activities that may extend beyond the boundaries of one jurisdiction or be of a magnitude or scale that has the potential for significant impacts. It can also be used to protect specific geographic areas that may have some kind of important regional or statewide significance of historic, cultural, or natural value. In Larimer County, we first adopted 1041 regulations in 2008 with a list of activities that were regulated at that time. In 2009, water and sewer transmission lines were added to that list of activities, and in 2010, large solar facilities were added. In 2022, the regulations were significantly revised with new review criteria and the addition of highways and interchanges to the list of regulated activities. I also want to note that prior to 2022, there was an option within the regulations for an agency or an applicant to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Larimer County in place of a 1041 permit. That option for an intergovernmental agreement is no longer in place, so that option has been removed. This slide shows the list of activities that are regulated. Tonight you will be hearing about a water transmission line, but I just want to note that there are various other types of activities that are regulated by these, this set of code regulations. The purpose of, I apologize, I've still got some planning commission information in there, but the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide a public hearing of this application and present the application for a final decision by the Board of County Commissioners sometime over the course of the next hearings that have been scheduled. This hearing provides the opportunity for public input as well as the opportunity for the applicant, the City of Thornton, to make the case for their project. Planning Commission did provide a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the County Commissioners are the final decision maker. Our procedures, as Commissioner Kafalis has described, include an introduction and overview of the process, which I'm doing now, the staff presentation, the applicant presentation, and then public testimony. And as was mentioned, the public testimony portion of the hearing will remain open after this evening and extend into the May 6th hearing to provide time for additional public participation. The applicant will have time for rebuttal after the public testimony, and then the commissioners will take all of the questions that they may have accumulated over those procedures and enter into Q&A and then deliberation and a decision at that point in the process. So again, tonight is really more about listening and taking in all of the information so that the commissioners can ask questions and eventually make an informed decision. So now I will turn it over to John Barnett, who will present this application and provide staff's analysis.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca, and good evening, everybody. The wonders of modern technology. I will be presenting tonight the results of staff's analysis, which is quite extensive, on the Thornton Water Project Segment F 1041 permit application, which is file 23-ZONE 3584. So, and the request is for a 1041 permit for an activity of state interest pursuant to Article 10 of the Land Use Code for a 10.4 mile, 42-inch diameter water transmission line with certain appurtenances and a 10,000 square foot pump station. The proposed segment F is located in Larimer County. It's part of an approximately 70-mile water transmission line from water supply and storage reservoir number 3 to the West Brown treatment plant and adjacent raw water storage facility in the city of Thornton. The Thornton Water Project is intended to convey up to 14,000 acre-feet of water per year at a capacity of up to 40 million gallons per day. In 1996, Thornton litigated over these water rights that it intends to use for its project. The Water Court decree allows Thornton to use this water for its intended purposes. The water has, for over 100 years, been diverted from the Poudre River at the location established in Thornton's water decree. Thornton is not changing the diversion point or the volume of water being diverted out of the Poudre. 1041 permits, just so you know what the number means, they're named for House Bill 1041, which was passed by the Colorado legislature in 1974. The general purpose is to facilitate the identification, designation, and regulations of areas or activities of state interest consistent with applicable statutory requirements. Site selection and development of new or extended domestic water or sewer transmission lines which are contained within new permanent easements greater than 30 feet in width or within new permanent easements greater than 20 feet in width that are adjacent to existing utility or other easements for infrastructure projects described in Larimer County's 1041 regulations, or to service an additional development of 25 or more residential units or the equivalent thereof in other uses. Domestic water transmission lines include those used to transport both raw and treated water. The applicant is Brett Henry, who is the Executive Director of Utilities and Infrastructure for the City of Thornton. Staff contacts include Stephen Rothwell of Engineering, Leah Schneider of the Health Department, and myself, John Barnett, in Planning. The public notice was posted in the officially designated area of the Larimer County Courthouse no less than 24 hours in advance of hearing, as required. It was also posted on the larimercounty.org website and published in the newspaper in the Coloradoan on March 1st of this year, and by first-class mailing to 346 surrounding property owners within 500 feet of the proposed Thornton Water Project alignment. The development area consists of a permanent easement and then temporary easements. The permanent easement is 50 feet wide for 10.4 miles and is approximately 63 acres in area. The temporary construction easement adds 40 feet of width to that and totals approximately 50 additional acres. The pump station includes a 10,000 square foot building occupying 6.2 acres, which is owned by a water supply and storage company. So the total acreage of the project is 119.2 acres. The land use in the area, or the land use that's being occupied, is primarily agriculture with a small amount of rural residential. The surrounding land uses are also primarily agriculture and rural residential. The proposed land use is a 42-inch water transmission line and 10,000 square foot pump station and necessary appurtenances. This map here shows the alternative alignments that Thornton chose to evaluate in its own decision-making process. They followed criteria that they developed in their public outreach and public participation process, and were quite thorough in their analysis, and as a result, developed a particular alignment shown here in this map. The question before the Planning Commission tonight, the question before the Board of County Commissioners tonight is, does the Thornton Water Project Segment F, as presented in this particular application and public hearing, meet the criteria in the Larimer County Land Use Code with or without reasonable conditions? It's important to note that the water rights were approved in 1996 and the decree is in place, and so we're not discussing water rights here. To enter into the detail of the site location, this is the pump station in the blue, and the intake area out into reservoir number 3, and then the beginnings of the easement are shown in the lower right corner of this particular exhibit, with the blue being the permanent easement and the purple being the temporary construction easement. I don't know if you can see it on this map, but in the center of the blue line is the proposed alignment of the pipeline. As we move further to the east, we see the access road, which is in green, and a yellow stripe on each side of it, which represents the wider part of it, which would be used as a haul road to bring in pipe. And then the orange line is power line that provides power for the pump station. And then moving further east, crossing Route 1, and in the upper right corner is a photograph looking upstream, back up toward reservoir number 3, and then the lower photograph is looking across Highway 1 to the southeast. The alignment follows the north side of County Road 56 after having crossed the field between Highway 1 and County Road 56. There is a wetland in the area, shown here, and then the alignment goes along County Road 56, and here's looking at the intersection of County Road 13 with the spruce trees here in the center being next to a house, or next to the intersection. Where the easement seems to disappear, the pipeline actually goes under Highway 56. It's rather constrained in that area for space, and then comes out from under, and you can see where the construction easement goes from one side to the other just to make room to work as the pipeline proceeds further east. Going further east still, along 56 and going around the backside of some of the improvements along the road, and then coming out at the crossing of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, and then down along the east side of that railroad. Crossing County Road 54, and then coming down to a right angle turn, turning east in an area that's in the center of private property. Coming to Interstate 25, and here's a view looking east across Interstate 25, and then proceeding across the fields, then south and southeast to County Road 52, then along County Road 52, to the Weld County line at County Road 3. There are 22 general criteria that all 1041 projects have to meet, and they can be lumped into 10 themes, if you will. These include resources of state and national significance, neighborhoods and property, environmental resources, public safety, county planning and intergovernmental agreements with municipalities, Article 4, which is our development standards, which are actually quite extensive, adequate public facilities and services, environmental health and hazards, response to referral agencies. We sent this out to 51 referral agencies and got a number of comments back, which we've incorporated into the staff report. And then finally, technical and financial feasibility of the project and the mitigation that's proposed. For resources of state and national significance, the criteria include no adverse impacts on sites and structures. And by the way, the criteria are listed on the wall back here and also on the other side of that wall out in the hallway. Also, no significant impact on natural resources of statewide importance, including critical habitat for threatened and endangered species. For projects affecting cultural resources, designed to preserve the integrity of that cultural resource. Compatibility and with the preservation of the resource to minimize damage to the resource. No significant impact on land use, neighborhood and property this is. No significant impact on land use, neighborhoods, rural development, or adjacent natural resources, or those impacts can be mitigated. And also that the project will mitigate impacts to property held by others. For visual resources and recreation, no interference with public view and scenic view sheds, ridge lines, or vistas, riparian tree canopies, or unique land formations, or that interference has been mitigated. Also, no undue degradation of the quality or quantity of recreational opportunities and experience. With county planning and intergovernmental agreements, consistent with applicable intergovernmental agreements, and also that consideration of reasonable siting and design alternatives, including co-location when requested by Larimer County, or why those alternatives are not available or feasible, and that the project is the best alternative available based on consistency with the comprehensive plan, land use code, need, existing technology, cost, and impact on the site and surrounding property. For projects that impact public conservation lands, projects are strongly discouraged on public conservation lands, and if resources are available that are of lower value, then it would be recommended that the project be located there. Environmental stewardship criteria includes that based on principles of resource stewardship and conservation, energy efficiency, recycling or reuse and adaptive management, and conservation or mitigation strategies for forest, water, and soils, and other natural assets, and also that the project mitigates impacts on rivers, streams, and wetlands to the greatest extent possible. First, avoiding those areas. Second, minimizing the impacts. And third, mitigating the impacts that actually do occur. And then the Article 4 standards include that the project complies with growth, development, environmental, and mitigation policies in the comprehensive plan and regulations for Article 4 of the Larimer County Land Use Code to ensure that it has mitigated impacts to the environment and natural resources, will not significantly degrade the environment or natural resources or exacerbate climate change. And then continuing with the same criteria, there are 8 sub-criteria, including air quality, surface water quality, stream and river health, groundwater quality, the ecological and functional health of wetlands and riparian areas, terrestrial and aquatic animal life, terrestrial and aquatic plant life, soils and geologic conditions, and visual quality. For adequate public facilities and services, that no significant adverse effect on the capability of local governments to provide services, and that the project does not exceed the capacity of service delivery system. That adequate public facilities and services, including water, wastewater treatment capacity, are available or will be provided by the applicant. For environmental health and hazards, that there's no significant impact on health and safety. The proposed project will not be subject to risk of significant damage or harm to human life or structures from natural hazards, including floods, wildfire, or geologic hazards. The proposed project will not result in unreasonable risk of releases or exposure to hazardous material. Under response to referral agencies, recommendations of staff and referral agencies have been addressed, and mitigation of construction impacts to county roads, bridges, and related facilities, construction accesses will be regraded and revegetated to minimize environmental impacts. That the proposal is technically and financially feasible, that the benefits of physical improvements and enhanced services outweigh the losses to natural resources, that the application has demonstrated that the costs to mitigate these impacts are proportional to the benefits achieved from mitigation. There are a number of conditions on the approval. Why do we do conditions? We do it basically to bridge the gap between the project and the criteria. Sometimes we need to adjust things a little bit, so there are conditions that we impose to do that, we recommend. To clarify how the project is to be implemented and operate. And finally, to guide the technical review process, which is really the final engineering of the project. Where do the conditions come from? From internal review departments, there are 4. From outside referral agencies, there were 15, for a total of 19 conditions, but adding them up slightly differently. The general conditions, there are a total of 76 conditions. So there are 12 general conditions. Under health conditions, 3 related to noise, 3 related to fugitive dust, 5 related to construction noise, and 5 related to utility infrastructure. Under engineering conditions, 1 related to the design and alignment, 12 related to construction, 6 related to transportation and access, 2 related to drainage and erosion control, 1 related to surface water health, 1 related to floodplain, and then 16 related to wildlife and vegetation, and 2 related to culture and historic resources. So, wait a minute, I got it. Okay, there's a technical review process that's quite extensive that goes through the entire process and is actually the majority of the review. And at the end of that technical review process, there are extensive federal, state, and local permits that are required.
And to clarify, that would be should this 1041 permit be approved?
Yeah, if approved, yes. So in summary and conclusions, the issues and concerns addressed with the conditions of approval, mitigation of impacts, and revegetation and restoration of the site. There is a technical review that follows the permit approvals if it's approved, if the project is approved. Once constructed, the long-term impacts are anticipated to be pretty minor. The project is anticipated to have minimal impacts on adjacent properties with the recommended conditions. And the Thornton Water Project corridor is primarily surrounded by agriculture, irrigation reservoirs, and large acreage residential properties. With the proposed conditions of approval in place, this application meets the review criteria for a water transmission pipeline. Most public comments received to date relate to concerns about the Poudre River, which are not the result of the proposed Thornton Water Project. The Development Service Team finds that the request for the Thornton Water Project meets the criteria found in Section 10.9 and 10.10.4 of the Larimer County Land Use Code, subject to the proposed conditions of approval, which are intended to ensure compliance with our referral agency comments. Therefore, the Development Services Team recommends approval of the Thornton Water Project 1041 permit, file number 23-zone 3584, subject to the conditions in the outlined in the staff report. And there is a suggested motion that's included for review. With that, I turn it back to the chair.
Are you done with your
I
presentation?
am.
So you're not going to get into the conditions of approval?
I wasn't planning to go through those all tonight
Okay.
unless you want me to do that, in which case I can.
I think it's fine to set that aside. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now move things along, and we will ask the applicants if you all want to come forward. If you would be kind enough to introduce yourselves, your connection to all of this, and as we stated, well, first of all, welcome. We have asked for up to 45 minutes. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Brett Henry. I'm the interim city manager for the city of Thornton. On behalf of Thornton City Council, the mayor, and our residents, I want to thank you for your time and consideration tonight. In our 2018 application, I'll describe our previous process as designing the project first and then soliciting feedback. However, it couldn't have been more clear that this was the opposite way we needed to go about this project. That's why in this permit cycle and this application, we actually listened to the community first, and that's what informed the design of this project that you see before you. You will hear the listen first approach throughout this presentation and how what we heard drove decisions for many aspects of this application. We have learned a lot from our dialogue with specific landowners along the alignment who have willingly provided access to their properties and given us vital input on the best, least impactful route on their property. I personally want to thank them for their time and input. It is Thornton's intention to be a good regional partner in government and a good neighbor to your community. I hope that you will see those principles and values reflected in our presentation tonight and in our implementation of this project. So with that, I'd like to introduce Carolyn White to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Brett. Welcome, Carolyn.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, County staff, and members of the public. My name is Carolyn White. I'm with the Brownstein Law Firm, and I'm part of the legal team representing the City of Thornton in this application. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce our project team and outline our presentation for this evening. Todd Barnes, Thornton's Communications Director, will begin our presentation with an overview of Thornton's general community outreach and stewardship within Larimer County. He'll be followed by Emily Hunt, the Deputy Utilities Director, with a discussion of our focused partner outreach and a description of the project. I will then provide a brief description of how the project conforms with the 1041 criteria, including how Thornton developed the various alignments and made the final decision on the preferred alignment that has been submitted for your review tonight. I will also speak about Thornton's proposed mitigation efforts as part of this application. Emily will then speak to you about Thornton's proposed benefits package, why now is crucial timing for this project, and finish with some concluding remarks. In addition to those presenting tonight, we also have in attendance Tammy Yellico, Thornton's City Attorney. We have our engineering team from Jacobs Engineering, and we have our environmental consultant team from ERO Resources. And they will all be available to answer your questions, even though they're not part of the formal presentation. We have a tremendous amount of material to present to you tonight and a limited amount of time to do so. We have crafted our presentation to focus on the key features of the application and how it complies with your criteria. That being said, of course, if there are additional items within which you would like to seek deeper understanding, we obviously will be delighted to answer that during the question and answer period. Throughout our presentation, you'll see this little symbol, the black magnifying glass there, and that indicates areas where we have specific additional materials prepared that time doesn't allow us to present to you as part of our formal presentation. We have, based on your request, Mr. Chair, timed this presentation at almost exactly 45 minutes. If we should happen to speak more slowly tonight than we did in our rehearsal, I would just ask that you give us plus or minus a minute or two if we need it at the end. Thank you very much, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to Todd Barnes.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Practicing our quick transitions here. Good evening, County Commissioners and County staff. My name is Todd Barnes, and I'm the Communications Director for the City of Thornton. And it's my pleasure tonight to present to you Thornton's 2023-1041 application and seek your approval for a 10.4-mile pipeline and how it meets Larimer County's 1041 criteria. As Brett mentioned, the last time Thornton came before you, this commission over 5 years ago, we presented information focusing on what we needed to do technically to meet your 1041 criteria. We learned through that last process that what we needed was a greater focus on the impacts to people. Not just the land that would be disturbed by installing a pipeline, but with a different focus this time, there's a lot we did differently. Communication engagement with people first and foremost. Here's a look at the significant changes to our application. This evening, we are asking for your approval of a precise preferred pipeline alignment. Last time, our application presented a far wider corridor approach. Our application before you includes a pump station that is 2 miles to the north and half a mile away from the nearest residence. Last time it was located closer to homes on Douglas Road and on private property. Our proposed alignment for the pipeline is 10.4 miles versus nearly 27 last time. Our proposed alignment impacts only 17 landowners this time compared to more than 50 in our previous permit application. This also results in reduced impacts to major roads and neighborhoods. Thornton reviewed in its last 1041 process, purposely looking for opportunities to use what we learned. After reviewing the information, we worked with a well-known and respected Colorado polling and research firm, Keating Research, to perform a survey of Larimer County residents within the study area. Thornton wanted their survey feedback to provide us guidance for the development of selection criteria and siting of the pipeline and the pump station. In April of 2023, Thornton sent letters to 409 Larimer County residents and landowners located in a very wide area and around where the pipeline could be sited. The letter provided background about the project and provided a link for people to take an online survey, which was offered in English and Spanish. The survey asked questions designed to get feedback on the important topics you see here, the preferred route for the pipeline among them, length of the pipeline, and location of the pump station. The results you can see here on the slide in order of importance to your community. What we heard from people in the project vicinity is that most important to them was minimizing impacts to private property and affecting as few properties as possible. Location of the pump station was important, minimizing traffic impacts, ensuring construction is completed as quickly as possible. We also asked if the public was interested in having Thornton co-locate all or a portion of the pipeline with the Northern Integrated Supply Project, commonly called NISP. I'd like to mention that the county also asked us to evaluate the potential to co-locate portions of Thornton's alignment with NISP, which we absolutely did. To gather more information, Thornton held 2 open houses in Larimer County. The first open house was at CSU's RDEC on August 15th, 2023, and the second was at the Fort Collins Hilton on August 21st, 2023. A total of 184 people attended these open houses. Thornton found these meetings very helpful. Here's a short video to show you about the open houses. We want to thank everyone who took the time to attend those meetings because this kind of community feedback was foundational to how Thornton developed multiple pipeline alternatives and ultimately selected its final alignment for what we call Segment F of the project. It's important to note that Segment F is just a portion of the overall Thornton Water project. You can see the scope of the project here. 85% of the pipeline is either in place, under construction, or in design. Authorization to complete the project has been obtained from all counties and municipalities in segments A, B, C, D, and E. As you can see, Thornton is already building this project. We have on-the-ground experience and a proven positive track record of working with landowners, communities, and other partners from design to construction on this project. We have several landowners and community partners who submitted letters to you describing their positive experience of working with Thornton on this project. To be clear, we also understand that some people do not support our project, and we understand that. But we also think it's important for you to know that we made purposeful efforts on multiple occasions to sit down and listen to and talk with opponents of the project. Thornton's mayor even had a meeting with opponents to listen to their perspective. There was a genuine effort to find common ground and understanding. We also think it's important to note that while Thornton has brought the significant changes to our project, despite our engagement efforts, opponents of the project have not provided any viable new ideas, and in fact continue to push a single concept which the Colorado Court of Appeals in the state's 1041 statute clearly state cannot be required of Thornton, does not meet the project's purpose and need, degrades the quality of the water, and therefore is not reasonable. Thornton has made every effort to be responsive and a good partner, but as you might imagine, with a project of this size, it is unlikely we can please everyone, despite our best efforts. Along those lines, we understand how important the Poudre River is to the community and the commitment you and your residents have to protecting and preserving it. Opponents have said Thornton is not concerned about the health of the Poudre River, but nothing could be further from the truth. Thornton has been a member of the Poudre Runs Through It Study Action Group since 2012. PRTI serves many functions, from organizing the Poudre River Forum to serving as somewhat of an incubator for projects and ideas that could help meet the group's vision of a healthy working river. One of the projects that was developed by PRTI is the Poudre Flows Project, which is an innovative and collaborative program that is currently under development that will add water to the Poudre River. To better explain how Thornton is working with regional partners in northern Colorado to increase flows on the Poudre, let's hear from Kate Ryan, the Executive Director of the Colorado Water Trust, as she speaks about the Poudre Flows Initiative.
The strategy that different members of PRTI came up with was that they would be able to use their own water for those purposes. And so Fort Collins, Thornton, Greeley have gotten together and filed a water court application together with Northern Water, Cache la Poudre Water Users Association, the CWCB, and the Colorado Water Trust to do exactly that, using a significant amount of water that, despite it being so expensive, they can get together and use their water rights for this purpose. So it's a really creative alternative to the traditional in-stream flow program, and it's the only way we're ever going to get significant amounts of water protected on rivers like the Poudres through that creative thinking. But for the Poudre Flows project, Thornton, Fort Collins, and Greeley are all contributing the water that will be protected by that project in the Poudre River at no cost. So that is an example of utilities working for their community.
Thornton's commitment to the region extends beyond the Poudre. Thornton is a significant landowner in the region, and we know this has an impact on the local communities. That's why, in 2015, we embarked on what we call the Thornton Northern Properties Stewardship Plan. The objective of this plan is to include local communities and stakeholders in Thornton's planning for the management and future use of these properties. The planning process was collaborative and was driven by a steering committee of local stakeholders and subject matter experts. This committee guided our analysis and helped turn the results into recommendations for future land use. You can see that Larimer County had a significant voice in this process, as the steering committee included several community members and representatives from Larimer County. Thornton City Council has affirmed its commitment to the principles of the stewardship plan by passing a resolution adopting its findings and directing staff to work towards implementation. We're excited about Thornton's river and land stewardship efforts and are happy to share additional information we have prepared if you ask. Now I would like to bring up Emily Hunt, our Deputy Director of Utilities, who will discuss the outreach our team did with key partners and property owners and how that translates to how we developed preferred pipeline alignment.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. So after the community survey that Todd mentioned, it was clear to us that we needed to have early conversations with the water supply and storage company, Northern Water, and ultimately specific landowners who would be impacted by the alignments that we were considering. The survey indicated that the community wanted us to locate the pump station where it wouldn't impact private landowners. We worked with WISC to identify possible pump station locations, shown on this map by the blue stars. You can see that 3 of the options we came up with are located on either WISC or Thornton property. WISC property is in pink, Thornton's property is in green. We also heard that both the county and the community wanted us to study the possibility of co-locating a portion of our pipeline with NISP. The most recent NISP alignment, as of March 2024, can be seen in dashed pink line on this map. So we've reached out to Northern Water to begin to understand where co-location might be possible. Finally, following the community open houses, we began to develop our various pipeline route alternatives. At this point, I attempted to reach out personally to the landowners along the alignments. The map on this slide shows the preferred alignment that we ultimately selected. But before we made this final selection, which impacts only 17 landowners, 100% of the landowners have been contacted. I personally communicated with all but 3 of these landowners or their representatives. And in these conversations, I learned about their farming practices, the facilities on their land, the future plans for their property. They also expressed their preferences for the location of the pipeline. When I spoke to the property owners who were along the NISP alignment, I learned about the discussions they had had with Northern and got their feedback regarding co-location. We also discussed how the project would actually be built, from the county's approval process to working with them to acquire easements all the way through construction. So several property owners have since given us permission to conduct surveys on their land. I'm very grateful for the time that these landowners spent with me. The input each of them provided was included in the development of our pipeline route. With that, I'll move to a general description of our project. So let me first explain why Thornton is building this project in the first place. Our current water supply is at its limit, and this long planned for supply from the Thornton Water Project is necessary to implement our comprehensive plan, which includes providing affordable and attainable housing to Coloradans. Thornton, like Larimer County, has a duty to protect the health and welfare of our residents, and as a water provider, Thornton has the additional responsibility to provide our residents with safe drinking water. Finally, the additional water provided by our project will improve the reliability and the drought resiliency of our water system. With that understanding, I'll give you an overview of our project. So let's start with the pump station. As we've mentioned, Thornton listened to resident concerns and evaluated different pump station locations. You'll recall that during the video of the open houses, you saw residents gathered around tables with large maps where they could leave comments. Well, this is the pump station map, which clearly indicates where the community prefers the pump station be located. So given this feedback and in consultation with WISC, we chose to change the location of the pump station to WISC Reservoir number 3. The pump station will have an estimated capacity of around 40 million gallons per day and will be constructed on property owned by WISC adjacent to the reservoir. The building will be about 10,000 square feet and will be powered by an all-electric system. There will not be a diesel generator on site. The closest residence is approximately half a mile from the pump station. How the pump station will actually look from the outside has yet to be determined, but all of the infrastructure associated with it will be enclosed within the building. Pump stations can be designed in a variety of ways so that they're compatible with the surrounding area. The photos that you're seeing now show examples of other pump stations and demonstrate the flexibility that exists in the design to reduce the visual impacts of these kinds of facilities. During design, Thornton will consult with Larimer County as well as reach out to neighbors in the area to gather input on the design and the architecture of the pump station. We wanted to provide Larimer County residents an opportunity to visit an actual pump station. So just last month, we hosted tours of operating pump stations in Thornton. The tours were open to the public, and notice was provided on our website. We also mailed postcard invitations to the 105 neighbors near the proposed pump station. Only one Larimer County resident and 3 Larimer County staff members took us up on the tour, and we were happy to provide them with firsthand experiences both inside and outside of the pump stations while they were working. So let's move to the pipeline itself. Mr. Barnett did a thorough job of describing the pipeline alignment, so I don't want to belabor that. But again, here's an overview of the route, which is shorter, crosses fewer properties. co-locates with NISP for about 44% of its length, and has less impact on roadways and traffic than our previous proposal. As we've discussed, the pipeline will be buried for its entire length. And what will that look like? Well, there are literally hundreds of miles of buried pipeline, water pipeline throughout Colorado. You often don't even know that those pipelines exist because the ground has been completely restored. So this is Thornton's project. And next, we'd like to talk to you about how our project fits into your 1041 regulations. So I'll ask Carolyn to come back up.
Seems like you folks have this down.
Thank you, Emily. First, I'd like to briefly handle some administrative matters. We'd like to request that the PowerPoint and the videos that are embedded in it and the charts that I'll be referring to in a few moments all be formally accepted into the record, along with the entire application, which I believe is already in the record, but just to confirm that, administrative matters, as I said. And then second, before I dive into talking about Thornton's mitigation and the analysis of how it meets the 1041 criteria, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that a lot has happened since the last time Thornton was before this body asking for approval of its pipeline several years ago. One of the things that happened during that time was a trip to the Court of Appeals. And our reading of the Court of Appeals decision and the court's direction regarding how this 1041 process fits in with the water court's jurisdiction is in alignment with that by staff and its analysis and with the Planning Commission Chair, Chairman Choate, when he discussed it with the Planning Commission. And that is that this application is really not about the Poudre River. It's not about Thornton's water rights. It's not about changing the diversion point. It's also not about mitigation to other properties that Thornton owns within Larimer County, which are not part of the pipeline route. We also agree with Larimer County staff then, for all these reasons, and with the Planning Commission, that all the discussion that was heard the last time, and which is still a big part of public comment about the so-called down the river option or the Poudre River option, is really not an appropriate part of this conversation. And just to put the misinformation to rest, because I note that there are still lots of comments in the public record about the Poudre River, there is numerous evidence throughout the packet which clearly demonstrates that this project does not reduce the river flows in the Poudre River. I'm going to say that one more time at the cost of a few more seconds. This project does not reduce the river flows in the Poudre River. That is not a component of this project. So the task you have before you is to sift through all of this information that we'll be presenting and determine whether the pipeline application, which is really just the pump station and the pipeline, complies with your 1041 regulations. And although staff presented to you earlier about the 22 general regulations and then I think it's 12 additional water specific ones, many of those have several sub-criteria underneath them, such that the total number of criteria that are addressed in our application is 49. So let's discuss how Thornton developed the preferred alignment. One of the criteria has to do with adequately considering reasonable alternatives, and the full criteria is up on this slide. I won't read it to you, but as Mr. Barnett stated during the Planning Commission hearing, this application process isn't really a site selection process. Rather, the criterion asks, did we adequately consider reasonable alternatives? And demonstrating compliance with this criteria is one reason why we're spending some time talking about the alternatives analysis and why there's a great deal of information about the alternatives analysis in the application packet itself. So in developing the reasonable siting alternatives and the method it would use to determine which preferred alternative it would apply for, Thornton began by reviewing the requirements of the land use code and reviewing the siting selection alternatives that were used by the two prior pipelines that you recently approved, Newt 3 and NISP. The next step in the analysis, though, was critical, and it was different from those prior applications. In that next step, Thornton reviewed the community feedback from the survey of Larimer County residents that was mentioned earlier that Todd described, and the feedback from the open house where residents had the opportunity to mark on a map their preferences as it relates to pump station locations and corridor alignments. And as you can see from this chart that we're going to show you in the next slide, it was most important to Larimer County residents that during construction, the impacts to private property along the pipeline route were minimized. The second most important thing was the location of the pump station. Following that, you can see on the scale of importance, impacts to traffic during construction, and ultimately impacting as few private properties as possible. Residents also emphasize the need to complete construction as quickly as possible and also prioritize to some degree co-location with NISP. So I'd like to provide a couple examples of how Thornton used this feedback. On this next slide, which Emily has shown you already, you can see the community feedback that helped lead to the decision to move the withdrawal point to Whisk Reservoir number 3. That in turn, of course, drives a whole nother set of decisions about the alignment of the pipeline, where you're going to start. All of the community feedback maps with all the sticky notes and all the handwritten notes are in your packet as part of the application, pages 276 to 308, if you'd like to see all the maps that look like this. On this slide, as it relates to potential co-location with NISP, for example, you can see an example of the feedback that Thornton received at the open houses regarding co-location, particularly in the more densely populated areas of the NISP alignment. In addition to being technically challenging, that actually was generally not favored by the public in those areas. So from this feedback combined with the land use criteria, looking at the Newton and NISP criteria, Thornton developed 10 possible alignments that started at the Whisk Reservoirs, connected with the pipeline in Weld County. 9 of these alignments co-located with NISP along part or the entirety of the pipeline length. On this next slide, I'm going to cycle through some of the alignments so you can see the different alternatives that were evaluated. Of the 10 evaluated, 4 included pump station sites at Whisk Reservoir number 3. All of the alignments could meet one of the 2 places where it needed to connect on the east side in Weld County. And most of the alternatives co-located with NISP in several stretches of the pipeline, because this was one of the factors prioritized by the community and because evaluation of that option was requested by Larimer County. Thornton then developed 12 selection factors to evaluate each of the 10 alignments. As I mentioned, these factors were informed by the community feedback, the Newton NISP factors, and the land use code. But something a little different, these site selection factors were weighted, giving more importance to Larimer County residents' preference compared to some of the other criteria. The weighting of the factors also prioritized the land use code criteria. On this slide, you see those factors in order of importance from highest to lowest, top to bottom. I won't read them all to you, but if you have further questions about them, we'd be happy to dive deeper. While Thornton did evaluate possible full co-location with NISP, that was one of the options that was evaluated, it was not selected as the preferred alignment, primarily because it was not supported by the community feedback that was received. The preferred alignment that's being proposed does align with NISP, does co-locate with NISP along approximately 40% of its length, 44% of its length, in the places where it made technical sense and it impacted as few property owners as possible. But in the more densely populated areas where the alignment is cited, shown, for example, on this map, like Gray Rock, I think we're one slide off. Nope, there we go, okay. The criterion about impacting the fewest number of properties took precedence over the criterion to consider co-location with NISP. Co-locating through this section would have impacted 50% more properties compared to the preferred alignment that was selected. So the alternatives analysis ultimately resulted in alternative E3 LCR 56 NISP East, which we refer to as the preferred alignment. This alignment locates the pump station at Whisk Reservoir number 3. It impacts only 17 landowners total, not counting Thornton and Whisk. It is the least impactful to traffic because it minimizes the need for construction within the right-of-way. It co-locates with NISP along 11 properties, or 44% of its alignment, and has minimal temporary impacts to wildlife and the environment. The application provides a detailed description of each alternative alignment and the analysis and how the scoring was performed and evaluated, and we'd be happy to go through that in more detail if you'd like to ask us questions about it. For your reference, it's at pages 2096 through 2127 of the packet. So now that you understand why we chose to locate the pump station where we did and the pipeline where we did, let's discuss how Thornton is going to mitigate any impacts that could result to the land and the people in that area of Larimer County. Starting with the mitigation reports. I want to briefly summarize how these reports, all of which are in the packet, support the conclusion that the application meets or exceeds all the applicable criteria. On this slide, you see listed all of the supplemental mitigation reports that were provided. They are lengthy, detailed, and technical, and we will not be going through all of them tonight, but we do, of course, have all of our experts here to answer your questions if you'd like to dive more deeply into any of them. But as this next slide summarizes, the reports conclude any impact to the land, environment, or properties along the preferred alignment will be minimal, will be temporary, during construction only, and all land and vegetation will be restored to pre-construction conditions. And as staff noted in its written staff report and in its presentation, the staff analysis concurs with this conclusion. So now I'd like to turn to how the project meets the land use code criteria. And of course, as I mentioned, we will not be going through all of the criteria. We just selected a couple to highlight for this presentation tonight. Happy to discuss any further that you would like. Also, I'd like to mention that we are aware of and have conferred with staff regarding the 76 proposed conditions of approval, and staff's analysis concludes that with those conditions, the project meets or exceeds the criteria. We generally agree with the conditions of approval, although we have requested a few minor drafting changes. Those are set forth in a letter dated today's date that is also in the packet, and we'd also be glad to talk about any of those in more detail if you would like. But we don't have time to go through them here. So, next slide. Due to the extensive nature of the 1041 criteria, and the fact that we can't review them all here with you tonight, we have put together this handy chart, which you should have received as a paper handout as well. And this chart illustrates where in the application packet you can find the materials addressing each of the criteria. The criteria are listed in the rows along the left-hand side. The contents of the application are listed along the top. And as you will see, there are some that have multiple check marks indicating that there are multiple resources, documents, and technical reports within the packet that address each of those criteria. If there's anything on here that you want to talk more about, please ask and we'd be happy to expand. Starting with criteria 10.9.1a, which was also mentioned, for example, by staff in its presentation, this criterion reviews how the project will mitigate impacts to property held by others. As has been described already, one of the primary objectives in selecting the preferred alignment was to prioritize the feedback from the residents of Larimer County within the project area. The route was specifically selected to minimize the impacts to property held by those residents, as reflected by the top 3 selection criteria, all relate to impacts to property held by others. So route selection is the first way that this criterion is met, by selecting the route which has the fewest impacts to property held by others. In addition, Thornton will prioritize communications with property owners during construction, just like they did during design, as was described by Emily and Todd earlier. Also, the siting of the pump station has been changed compared to the prior application to move it further from residents. The closest residence is now more than a half a mile away. In order to evaluate potential impacts of that pump station, one of the things that Thornton did was commission a sound study modeling the expected noise of the pump station over the ambient background noise. And that study clearly demonstrated that the pump station will easily comply with the local noise ordinances. At the Whisk property line, for example, the pump station noise is estimated to be only 34 decibels. Larimer County's noise ordinance for residential property, which would be the next couple properties over, is 55 decibels. So it easily meets that criterion. Also, as was mentioned, the pump station will be electrically powered. There's no diesel generator on site. And also, Thornton has agreed to do a second sound study after the pump station has been constructed in order to show compliance with the noise ordinance. And that's reflected in conditions 13 and 14. Another area of concern that was identified by the Larimer County residents was traffic. And so I'd like to spend a little time just talking about how Thornton has thoughtfully developed the traffic mitigation plans. To start with, again, the route selection itself is a component of mitigating and meeting this criteria of minimizing impacts to property held by others. This route avoids major thoroughfares and individual driveways and accesses wherever possible. Thornton will also employ a variety of traffic control measures that will be separately reviewed through the technical review process by Larimer County staff to ensure that traffic flows efficiently during construction. Roads will not be closed unless specifically allowed by Larimer County. To give you a sense of how temporary these impacts really are, let's look at this slide. The yellow and green on the slide indicate where there will be construction on Thornton, Wisk, or private property that does not impact traffic at all. The pink indicates tunneled crossings, where it goes underneath the road. The traffic impacts are shown in red. For open cut crossings, there are 5 locations in red squares on this map. You could expect approximately 5 days of traffic impacts during construction at each of those locations. For portions of the pipeline alignment that are within and parallel to the right-of-way, which is indicated at location 1, you can see the red line that parallels the pipeline location there, you could anticipate approximately 20 days of traffic impacts. And at location 5, which is east of I-25, you can anticipate approximately 10 days of traffic impacts. While it's not part of our main presentation, we have a lot of information about the construction plan, and we have our experts here to answer your additional questions about that. But I wanted to just give you a sense of what the total timeline might look like for the construction of this pipeline. To further mitigate impacts during construction, Thornton will ensure that residents, emergency vehicles, trash trucks, farm equipment, and mail providers all have access to properties and roads during construction. The preferred alignment was largely selected, as I mentioned, to mitigate impacts to traffic, including impacts to farmers who will be transporting crops during harvest season. The other potential impact arising from construction is noise. Here you see a list of the possible noise mitigation tools that Thornton and its contractors may implement during construction. County staff has recommended and Thornton has agreed to turn some of these into conditions of approval. Thornton will also have a construction communication plan that will consist of a variety of ways that the public can make contact to report concerns or ask questions. As you know, Thornton's pipeline is already underway in construction and design in Adams and Weld County, and Thornton has demonstrated a very positive track record of working with property owners and local communities in those areas during construction. Overall, Thornton has proposed more than 150 mitigation measures and commitments that will aid in minimizing or preventing those temporary impacts to Larimer County residents and the environment during construction. Happy to talk about any of these in further detail, but let's move on to criterion 10.9.1E. This criterion reflects considerations of the growth, development, and environmental and mitigation policies within Larimer County's comprehensive plan, and also Article 4 of the Land Use Code. Again, to simplify and focus your review, we have provided a chart that demonstrates all the ways in which the project is in alignment with the comprehensive plan, particularly the portions of the comprehensive plan dealing with these issues, growth, development, and environmental and mitigation policies. I would note that our analysis contained within the application packet and this chart provides much more detail than what was submitted by the prior 2 pipelines that you recently considered on this specific point related to compliance with the comprehensive plan. I can give you the page references in the packet if you'd like that. I won't go through all this, but please know that Thornton did a very deep dive and an analysis of the comprehensive plan as it relates to this application and identified all of the ways in which this application is in conformance with the goals in the comprehensive plan. Because we know this is of specific concern to the commissioners, we wanted to take a moment here to highlight wildlife mitigation. Our expert consultants conducted a wildlife assessment and found no critical habitat for any federally or state listed species within the project area. Staff does note in the staff report that the areas inventoried along the pipeline route already experience consistent human activity. Any potential impacts would be temporary, and these areas would recover quickly after construction. Nonetheless, staff is recommending, and the applicant agrees with some conditions of approval to ensure mitigation of impact and follow-up after restoration. We know that protecting wildlife isn't just about threatened and endangered species. We have some information on how we will be working to protect habitat for other species and other wildlife, such as songbirds, if you would like to ask us about that later. Thus, this criterion is met. Moving next to criterion 10.9.1F, The project demonstrates how it mitigates impact on rivers, streams, and wetlands to the greatest extent possible and follows that hierarchy that Mr. Barnett mentioned. Avoid impact if possible, minimize impacts that are unavoidable, and mitigate the impacts that do occur. First, as to rivers, the project does not have any impact on rivers, period. As to streams and wetlands, any impacts will be temporary and limited to the construction phase only. During the alternatives analysis and selection process, the length of each alternative crossing the wetlands and riparian areas was evaluated, and that was one of the factors in selecting the preferred alternative, to try to minimize that to the greatest extent possible. On this graphic, you can see some of the areas where a wetland crossing was avoided by rerouting the pipeline, and you can also see some of the areas where it could not be avoided. So where it can't be avoided, this triggers the obligation, obviously, to minimize impacts. The applicant will be obtaining a nationwide permit number 58 and also complying with section 4.4.2 of the Land Use Code, which requires no net loss of wetlands. And so we have agreed with staff that there ought to be a condition requiring both pre and post mapping, monitoring, and maintenance in order to ensure compliance with this criterion. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit because I see that we have only 7 minutes left and I still have a couple criteria that I'd like to tell you about. No longer-term impacts to floodplains. The water pipeline does cross the Box Elder Creek floodplain, just like NISP and Newt both did. And just like both of those pipelines, there are only temporary impacts during construction. And just like both of those pipelines, our proposal is to mitigate and restore everything back to its pre-construction status. And there will be pre- and post-mapping in order to ensure that that occurs. Let's talk about criterion 10.9.1Q, which is asking about the project's conservation approach. Thornton has a commitment to water efficiency. They have adopted a sustainability action agenda, and those will guide and govern Thornton's decisions during the implementation of this project. Thornton has also engaged a credentialed Envision professional to assist and advise the project team during construction and implementation. That framework minimizes the project footprint and impacts to residents, the public, and the natural environment, and also ensures that it does not exacerbate climate change. We'd love to tell you more about Envision, time permitting, during the Q&A section. Let's turn to 10.9.1T. This criterion is a balancing test. Benefits outweigh loss to natural resources and reduction of productivity of agricultural lands as a result of the proposed development. There are no long-term or permanent losses to natural resources or agricultural lands. Any potential impacts are temporary. Individual property owners will, of course, be compensated for any temporary losses and for the ability to place that permanent easement on their pipeline. And another way that impacts have been minimized is by the route selection, as I mentioned. Additionally, wherever possible, the route was aligned along property boundaries or existing easements so that it doesn't cut right through the middle of properties. Therefore, because there is no loss of natural resources or no loss of productivity, it was our conclusion that there didn't need to be that weighing of benefits, but we did hear differently from a few planning commissioners. And so for that reason, we wanted to suggest that a portion of what was being proposed as the sort of separate benefits package be considered to offset potential short-term impacts to natural resources or agricultural lands. And very, very briefly described what those benefits are is that for two of the properties which Thornton owns, which are along the pipeline alignment and therefore properly associated with this pipeline application, that's Thornton Farms 44 and 63, which are circled in pink on this map. Thornton is agreeing to that it will conserve two of these farms along the pipeline alignment and dedicate the greater of $3 million or the proceeds of any subsequent sale to the Poudre River Enhancement Fund, to be established Poudre River Enhancement Fund, or some equivalent fund that the county might designate. Of course, it still has to comply with the water court decree with these farms, but it would also coordinate with Larimer County and seek Larimer County's feedback and direction as to the disposition of these farms. We have therefore proposed a modification of condition number 8 that staff has proposed that specifically relates to this issue. So now in the 3 minutes that we have remaining, I'd like to call Emily back to discuss the additional benefits and wrap up.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Yes, a little bit of additional information. So as Carolyn described, we are offering a portion of the benefits package as part of that criteria. But what we wanted to do, and Patty, we can move to the next couple of slides, is one more, please. One more, please. There we go. So Thornton also owns other properties. The two that Carolyn talked about, we own 4 additional other farms. And so what we'd like to offer as an additional community benefit is similar conservation commitments to those other Thornton farms. So the idea would be they would be placed into some sort of conservation commitment and then sold to landowners, potentially producers, and then the proceeds of those sales would also go to this Poudre River Enhancement Fund. So let's go to the next slide. One more, please. This fund doesn't exist yet. We are looking forward to talking with the county about it and other community members, but the idea is to invest in certain Poudre River health initiatives with this fund. Can go one more slide, please. So kind of a summary of what we're proposing in terms of benefits. On the left-hand side, you'll see the ones that Carolyn was talking about that relate to sections 10.9.1.t, so around 462 acres of conserved land, and at least a $3 million guarantee to the Poudre River Fund, greater than that if the proceeds from the sales of those farms come in higher. And then these added community benefits brings in the other 4 other properties that Thornton owns in Larimer County for a total of 862 acres. Again, proceeds from the sales of those farms going to the Poudre River Enhancement Fund. Want to make sure that you understand that these farms have been identified in the Larimer County Open Lands Master Plan as priority conservation areas. So some of them are within the Wellington Buffer and others have been identified as partnership areas, I believe. So we understand that they fit Larimer County's conservation objectives. So combined overall benefit of 1,324 acres of conserved land and upwards of $9 million to the Poudre Fund. So we can go to the next slide. As we mentioned, our system is critical timing for Thornton. Our water supply is at its capacity, and it is impacting our ability to deliver affordable and attainable housing to the region, as well as economic benefits to our community. We can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, we'll stop here. So tonight we believe that we've demonstrated that this is not the same proposal that came before us 5 years ago. This time we did listen, and we listened first and designed second. And as you can see on this slide, we meet and exceed the expectations of your process in multiple ways. Most importantly, though, we have gone above and beyond what was submitted in the NISP and Newt 3 applications that you've already approved, and we've demonstrated that on a technical level, Thornton's application meets or exceeds all of the applicable 1041 criteria, your code, and provides benefits to your community that far outweigh any temporary impacts of this project. I got 10 seconds left, so thank you so much for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Emily, and your team. Appreciate very much that you've adhered to our request. I'm sorry that if I've contributed to any stress levels, trying to get through all that. I think it. Well, I feel a need to stretch. Maybe let's reconvene at 7:30. Let's take a bit of a recess, stretch, get some water, but please, let's start with public comment promptly at 7:30. Thank you. Okay, thank you all very much. We took about a 5-minute break to stretch our legs, get some water. And so we are now at 7:30 p.m. We'll begin the public comment portion of tonight's hearing. And Rebecca, I think I'd like to turn it back to you and maybe provide a bit of a framework and how we're going to do this, and the matter of 3 minutes for individuals, but also if people are part of an organization. That could you help us with that, please?
Yes, yeah, happy to. So, as was mentioned, each comment will be limited to 3 minutes. If there's somebody that you intended to sign up with so that you could share time to continue a presentation into their 3 minutes, we can accommodate that. You just need to let us know that that is your intent. The order that we will handle public comments in is those who signed up in advance of the hearing using the online sign-up form will go first, and we will share that list on the screen so you'll see where you're at in the order. So if you signed up in advance prior to tonight, those names will show up first on the list. If you signed up when you came to the hearing tonight in person here, those names are next on the list. And then if you did not sign up in advance on the form, and you are on Zoom, or you have not yet indicated that you want to speak and you're in person, you can raise your hand if you're on Zoom, and we'll get you kind of added into the queue at the end of that list. So again, if you signed up prior to tonight, those names will show up first. If you signed up tonight as you came in, those names will come next, followed by anyone else who did not sign up in advance or sign up at the door. We have time reserved both tonight and on May 6th for public comment. We will get through as much of the public comment tonight as we can, knowing that we have some time reserved on the 6th as well. I think that covers everything for now. I guess I'll just remind everyone that when it is your time to comment, please come up for an efficient use of time. If you're next up, if you're on deck, if you could start to make your way up to the front so we can move quickly to the next speaker. Please address the commissioners at the mic at the podium. Don't speak out into the audience because it's harder for the microphone to pick up sound that way. So speak to the commissioners, and we will maintain a timer up on screen here for that 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rebecca. And before we begin, I just wanted to mention that I was handed some written comment by our environmental planner from one of our constituents. I'll make sure that we make copies of these so all 3 commissioners can see this, and we'll make sure that it's included in the public record.
Yes, and we can help make copies right now if you would like.
Yes, and this is from George Wallace, but let's do that, please.
Mr. Chairman, that is already in your record.
All right.
So you did receive that earlier.
We've all seen that? Okay. All right, then. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that, John. So we have the spreadsheet in front of us. It looks like the first person who signed up is Mike Garrett. Is Mike here?
He does not wish to speak.
And then in the queue, we have Gary Walkner. So I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Mike is not here, or is he?
He is here, but he did not wish to speak.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Gary.
Thank you. My name is Gary Walkner. I'm representing Save the Pooter. We have about 1,000 members in Larimer County. Chairman, before I begin, the directions that were just told to us about pooling time, that has never been told to the public before. It was not on the website. It was not in the email you sent to me. We had no idea we could do that. Now I'm going to begin my short 3-minute allowed comments.
And when you're done with your 3 minutes, Gary, I'll offer some comments on some of the things you just stated.
Okay. Welcome to Earth Day. For us, this feels like Groundhog Day. We've been at this over 10 years, dealing with Thornton and their pipeline, supporting and trying to advocate for the Pooter River option, which was their idea from the get-go, and still a great idea. First and foremost, in this really small amount of time, we are asking that this commission do what the commission did 6 years ago, which is pause these proceedings and appoint a working group so the community's questions and concerns can be addressed. There was so much false and misleading information in the last 45 minutes that it is impossible for someone like me who's been so involved in this to even begin to address it. So we're asking for a pause and a working group appointment. Very quickly, the Poudre River runs through it stuff. There's nothing new there. That happened 6 years ago when the commission unanimously denied this. Nothing new there. By the way, our comments are on page 3006. I hope you got that far. We sent a memo from our attorney which responds to some of the comments that they made and some of the information that your attorney allegedly happened. That memo is on page 3030. I hope you got that far. This is an unbelievable amount of information in a short period of time for the public to digest and have to respond to in 180 seconds. This application violates the current Larimer County Land Use Code at least 5 times by 5 criterion. First and most importantly, one of the very first things your Land Use Code says is that applications must first avoid impacts. They could simply do that by choosing the Poudre River option. They were refusing to do the Poudre River option. They're saying this is not about the Poudre River. It's absolutely about the Poudre River. The water comes out of the Poudre. They created the Poudre River option, and they're only proposing a pipeline so that they can avoid the Poudre River. But they actually stand in front of you and say, this has nothing to do with the Poudre. It's everything to do with the Poudre. It avoids all impacts. It provides actual benefits to the county and to the citizens and to the natural resources, which is what is supposed to happen here, benefiting the county, the citizens, and our natural resources, not the ratepayers in Thornton, Colorado, which is what their pipeline benefits. If you have to vote on this, we of course ask that you deny this project. But we're really asking for is a pause and a timeout so the community's questions and concerns can be heard and give a voice to the people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And before we go to the next person, I wanted to clarify a couple of comments. One, I believe Mr. Wagner referenced an email that he might have received from me. I just want to make it perfectly clear. The email that he's referring to, there were 2 people who emailed, I believe us, on Friday, I think it was, wondering about the 3-minute, that we had changed the 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and we did not update the form to sign up. It still said 2 minutes. And so my response to Mr. Wagner and another individual who may be here was to simply inform them that we had increased the individual time allotment. So I did want to clarify that. That was the exchange that occurred on Friday via email to explain that we had increased it. We corrected the survey form. That was unfortunate. The reference to there was nothing on the website regarding procedures. Respectfully disagree because we did state there's a PDF document, a 2-page PDF document on the website, and that was corrected to 3 minutes, although it was kind of buried in the whole thing. And there was a reference that while people could not pool their time, they could coordinate their presentations, their 3 minutes, if they were part of a particular organization like Save the Poudre or perhaps others. So that was stated, so I wanted to clarify that. All right, with that, we'll move on to the next person. Is Morgan Cullen here from, well, you can introduce yourself and you can credential yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Larimer County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Morgan Cullen. and I'm here on behalf of the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver this evening. The HBA of Metro Denver represents 550 home builders, developers, remodelers, architects, mortgage lenders, title companies, subcontractors, suppliers, and service providers in the 8-county metro area that we serve. My comments this evening are consistent with the letter that the HBA submitted to the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners on April 4th that all of you should have received. The issue before you this evening has been going on for more than a dozen years since the City of Thornton indicated its intentions to access the water rights it has held since the 1980s. Since that time, we have seen the cost of housing skyrocket to unsustainable levels. The only real way to slow this growth and bring down the cost of housing is to increase the supply across the Front Range. Over the past 2 decades, communities across Colorado have failed to adequately prepare and deliver the housing supply necessary to meet the population projections, and the consequences to affordability have been disastrous for countless Coloradans. Given that Thornton's population is projected to increase by 100,000 residents in the coming years, if they have access to the additional water supply, it's imperative that they're granted access to the water rights so that the residential construction industry can begin building out of the current crisis we find ourselves in. Across the Front Range, builders have seen water resources and connection fees escalate to unprecedented levels due to a decrease in water availability. These costs have contributed greatly to the cost of purchasing a home in Colorado, currently threatening not only our industry, but our regional economy and collective prosperity. The National Association of Home Builders' latest priced out estimates from January 2024 indicate that every $1,000 increase in the cost of a median priced home will further price out over 2,000 Colorado households out of the housing market. Fortunately, Thornton's revised 2023 permit application has reduced the length of the pipeline within the county, moves critical pump stations 2 miles north onto preferable WISC property, creates few traffic impacts, and only minimally affects adjacent properties during the construction phase of the pipeline. In the spirit of regional cooperation and housing attainability in Colorado, we respectfully request that the Larimer County approve the City of Thornton's permit application so that the home building industry can get to work solving Colorado's housing attainability crisis across the Front Range. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Again, one last comment on my part. We did ask for staff to pull out documents. The 3,000-page rule packet is quite daunting, and I will be the first to tell you that I did not read every page meticulously, but we did our best to read as much of the public comment as we received. We received countless emails, and while the process may not be perfect, we did do our best to listen to folks. So well, enough said, I suppose. Warren, is Warren here? Warren Lemerick, I hope I have your last name, sir. Welcome, and if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Mr. Kovales, thank you. It's good to see you again, sir. My name is Warren Lemerick. I'm a resident of Larimer County. I appreciate the audience and the commissioners here tonight giving us time to give a few words. I came in just a little bit ago because I came to the Planning Commission a few weeks ago, and honestly, I couldn't stomach another presentation by Thornton. I've listened to what they've said. In fact, sir, ma'am, I've gone to every one of the open houses that they have offered and gave input. A lot of people I see in this room have done the same. And since those open houses, not one bit of feedback that me as a resident of this county that provided Thornton has been addressed. I've sent letters, I've sent emails, I've made phone calls. I've done everything I could to give positive impact back to Thornton as to options to this project that they propose. And I've never received a single bit of response from them. They say that they've reached out to the community, and that's just not true. I was part of the working group back in 2017 when this first came before the board. And we would try to encourage Thornton to go back to their original Their original plan, their idea of taking the water out of the Poudre southeast of Fort Collins wouldn't even need to be here. This gentleman from the Home Builders Association wouldn't need to be here. They could have their water already. They bought the rights back in the 1980s. Whether anybody in here likes it or not, they did it legal, and they have a right to that water. But what they did not buy, what they did not purchase, was the quality of water. Now they want to cherry pick it. They want to get it right out of the mouth of the Poudre. I understand that. They want to save on costs. They don't want their residents to incur additional cost to clean water. But what they're doing, by doing that, or by wanting to move that through and get that approved, is they're causing great harm to the people of this county, and they're causing harm to the river, the Poudre River. The riparian, I'm sorry, is there a question? Am I out of time? Oh, I'm sorry. The riparian corridor of the river could be greatly improved by just allowing the water to run through it. So what I'd like to ask the commissioners tonight is not for a vote, a yes or no, but it's to table this. I'd like to ask the commissioners to table this so that the community can form another working group. Maybe Thornton can actually involve people this time instead of just talking to a few people, that the new route, which is really not much different than the old route, will go through and involve the community and listen to us. Again, I'd like to end this with just saying that I have continually reached out to the city of Thornton for the last 7 years. Not one reply. Please, commissioners, please table this. Allow us to form a working group or some other thing so that we can continue this when we're all able to best bring ourselves forward to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. The next person on the list is Emila Gorel. Help me with the other part of your hyphenated last name, please.
My name is Mila Garel Essam.
Essam. Welcome.
Thank you. As I said, my name is Mila Garel Essam. I'm a student at CSU and a resident of Fort Collins for about 6 or 7 years now. I really love the Poudre, and as I'm learning in CSU education, I'm a conservation biology major, is that climate change is a huge deal, and it kind of feels like, why are we not caring about this more? And I think that this is a great issue to highlight that upon, like, it won't snow here in 20 years. That's pretty immediate in our future. And climate change will affect us all. So even if this appears to be like Larimer County gets the benefit of having a river and Thornton, suck it up, you have shitty water because that's what you got. But we're all affected by climate change. Like, we really need to come together in this issue. And maybe we could, it seems like we're fighting each other right now, but maybe we could make an agreement. And as part of that, I think it's really important that the water quality issue falls upon Fort Collins. And I don't know if that is accurately addressed, but maybe we could come to an agreement where Fort Collins puts in maybe water mitigation and water pollution mitigation specifically in exchange for the Thornton community allowing their water to go through the Poudre River. It is also my understanding from their presentation that they said that they don't affect the Poudre River, but that is all I've heard until tonight, which my understanding from their presentation is that is because they already have been taking this water out of the river when they bought the rights for irrigation, but that history is very small, and before we colonized this land, that water was in the river, to my understanding. And so if we really want to battle climate change, we know that putting this water back in the river is beneficial for everyone. Even if it's already been taken out for 50 years, it still makes the most sense to put the water in the river that will benefit the ecosystem for us all. Climate change affects us all. And also, I noticed in their video of asking the community, it appeared to be mostly white older people, which I don't think accurately represents the community as they presented it to be, even if they do even take those considerations into account, as we've heard from other people. So I think, and another question is, what does the Poudre Enhancement Fund do? Sometimes it's hard to trust. We say we're going to put money in a place, but what are we spending that on? Because there's a lot of different ideas about what is a healthy ecosystem or not, depending on who that's coming from. So maybe we can come together about this, and Fort Collins can mitigate our pollution to the river so that they will want to tape their water out from below, because we should do that to our neighbors as we expect them to be kind to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mila. Next is Karen Wagner. Hello, Karen. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to try to rush through this and get all the words in, but at the Planning Commission hearing 12 days ago, I mentioned...
Karen, could you please identify yourself for the record?
Oh, excuse me. Karen Wagner, Larimer County. Thank you. Louder?
No, thank you.
Let me move closer.
You're fine, gosh.
Karen Wagner, Larimer County. At the Planning Commission hearing 12 days ago, I mentioned my optimism when I first learned of the Thornton Pipeline. I believe it presented a tremendous opportunity for interurban planning. I hope that Thornton would want to set an example as to how Denver metro communities could meet their water needs and simultaneously restore the Poudre River at a time when rivers in the West are dying. But Thornton quickly proved they had no altruistic sentiments about the state's only wild and scenic river and the sense of place tied to the Poudre. During the April 10th hearings, Thornton showed their true disregard for the residents of Larimer County. No pipe dream members, Larimer County period, no pipe dream members were frustrated and angry to see that Thornton presenters were back with their previous tactics of gaslighting Larimer County and its residents. In 2018, our No Pipe Dreams attorney requested information in a CORA request that showed that, in fact, the Thornton Northern Project is 3 pipelines. This first pipeline you're discussing tonight, a second parallel pipeline, and a return flow pipeline, as I presume is required by the water court. And to that, Thornton says no. And I'm sorry, but I have to say bullshit. It's a matter of public record. Anyway, that's just one example of what occurs when an applicant gets all the time in the world to rebut county residents who wish to bring facts and concerns to your attention. On behalf of the No Pipe Dream Board and the organization's membership, we ask, what's the rush? Why push a project this consequential through to approval in less than 2 weeks? Thornton is in no rush. If they were, they wouldn't have spent 4 years filing lawsuits. They're in no rush. But they say they're holding up thousands of building applications. And you think they're going to do that with one pipeline? They're not. That's never been their plan. Several members of No Pipe Dream participated in the working group that has been mentioned earlier. We invested many hours and evenings to meet the objectives set by the board. We respectfully request that the board pause the development review process and, I understand, May 6th vote in order to establish a working group or similar strategy. We deserve straight answers and believe a working group would result in a much improved project to meet all 1041 criteria, save Thornton's millions, and reduce the impacts on Larimer County and its residents. Please consider this request.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Yes. Next person is Barry Feldman. Is he here? And Jenny, Barry's not online or anything like that?
Barry is not online, from what I can tell.
All right. Then,
Sorry, we're having some technical challenges here, just trying to get everything
are you the next person in the queue?
organized on screen here.
If you could just take a deep breath for a moment. You're good, but just, are we getting our technical challenges fixed?
Just another second.
Oh, you're Eric Steidl.
Okay, looks like we're good.
Very good. Welcome, sir. If you would be kind enough to introduce yourself for the record, and you have about 3 minutes.
My name is Eric Steidl. Good evening, Commissioners. Our family owns and operates the Alfalfa Hay Farm located at 4632 County Road 52. In a previous decision, the Commission approved the NISP alignment, which will traverse approximately 1 mile of our farm. We trust that you've been able to review the letters and public testimony that we have provided regarding these pipelines. At the Planning Commission hearing, it was explained that the county's 1041 process could only consider the application, in this case the Thornton Water Project, as a single project. However, when Thornton was directed to look at an alignment which co-located with the NISP alignment, and then subsequently adopted that alignment, it no longer seems logical or feasible to evaluate these two pipelines as individual projects. Quite frankly, the effects of having 1 mile of co-located pipeline, which is 10% of Thornton's pipeline, on our property and business are now cumulative. Additionally, CRS 3786-105, the no land burden with more than one ditch statute, may provide some additional insight on how we deal with co-location and mitigation measures. Commissioners, we are asking you to consider the cumulative effects of these pipelines that they impose on our farm and our business. We are asking to have our concerns as a private landowner considered on an equal basis to those of the applicant. Larimer Land Use Code 10.9 outlines the review criteria for all permit applications. I believe the following apply in my case. 10.9.1A, the project will mitigate impacts to property held by others. 10.9.10, the proposed project will not significantly degrade any current or foreseeable sector of the local economy. And 10.9.1T mitigates the reduction of productivity to agricultural lands. Upon review of the Thornton Water Project packet, 10.1A and 0.10 do not address the impacts or mitigation measures from the affected landowner's perspective. 0.0 and 0.T, a representative from Thornton asserted there would be virtually no impact to the agricultural production. When I asked a member of the Planning Commission what were the mitigation measures for having absorb two major pipelines, I was left with good luck. I could not find the regulatory and legal definitions of virtually or good luck. Whether these responses were loose language or reflective of a pervasive attitude, I don't know, but they come across as dismissive to the very real impact on my business. To be clear, we don't want another pipeline, just as we didn't want the NISP. But we are also keenly aware that there are other dynamics in play. If approved, we would ask for the following conditions of approval to be added: concurrent and simultaneous construction of the pipelines, reduced lateral separation, and we would like to look at the concept of to make one whole. We're not interested in being difficult, but we do believe we should be fairly compensated to the effect on our business and on our farm. Thank you, gentlemen and ma'am.
Thank you for your testimony, Eric, and I read your letters this morning.
All right, our next speaker is Jake Schroeder. He's online, so let me unmute him, and he should be able to speak.
Thanks, Jenny.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, please. Yes, Jake, this is John Kafalas. If you would be kind enough to introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. My name is Jake Schroeder. I'm a former resident of Larimer County and grew up in Fort Collins. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening, and thank you for your service. I'm here to speak in favor of the 1041 application by the City of Thornton for 3 reasons. Number one, as I'm sure you're all aware, Colorado is facing several crises at this time, two of which are a water crisis and a housing crisis. Those two are not mutually exclusive. Without water, you cannot create attainable housing to solve the housing crisis. Thornton acquired this water in the 80s, has the legal right to this water, and needs the water for a host of reasons, including quality of water and attainable housing. The only way that both of these crises can be resolved is through cooperation, as Ms. Gorell Essam said earlier. Local, county, and statewide cooperation. Larimer County blocking Thornton's legal right to access water that it owns creates a dangerous and catastrophic precedent, which does not benefit anyone, including Larimer County residents, and further exacerbates the housing crisis in the state. However, if Larimer County approves the 1041, it will, through cooperation, allow Thornton to access water that it owns and help address the state's attainable housing crisis, which exists not only in Denver, but in Fort Collins as well. The second reason is that the 1041 application satisfies all the applicable 1041 criteria. And lastly, Thornton has gone above and beyond what they needed to do under the 1041 criteria to satisfy those 1041 criteria, as well as go above and beyond in all sorts of other ways to create benefit for Larimer County. For these reasons, I respectfully request that you approve this 1041 application. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Mr. Zach Thode, welcome.
Commissioners, thank you. Zach Thode here. I live in Livermore, Colorado, so just for the record, this pipeline will go nowhere near my house, and I am nowhere near downstream from any of the issues, but I am here to speak today about some of the values that this project might have to agriculture as well as to other things. I did look through their packet real quick, but I was not able to find the list of referral agencies, but I would like to encourage the planning department in the future to refer some of these projects to either an ag group, the AAB, or to some water rights holders, because I don't think there's fair representation in your referral agencies of any of those organizations. I think primarily my main point is that this is a private property rights issue. I think that the previous Mr. Steidel addressed the issue very well. Some people will be impacted. I think it's appropriate that Thornton remunerates those impacts as officially and accordingly to the losses, as well as it's a water rights issue, and that's a private property right. And it concerns me that we don't respect water rights the same way we respect private property rights. And as a water rights holder myself in Larimer County, I do slightly get concerned when the county commissioners deny the ability of a water rights holder to use their water in the places that they've been allowed to use it by the water court. Some of these issues are water court issues and not county issues. Another point is that I worked really hard on the comprehensive plan and the land use code updates over the years. Maybe the planning department appreciates that. Maybe not so much sometimes. But I think that it provides a basic framework for getting these things done, and that's all we can do is to provide guidance for how to get these things done. And I think if we don't follow that guidance, we shouldn't allow it. But if we do, we have to approve things that follow the guidance that have been set forth by your staff, by the volunteers that have worked really hard to create that framework. And I think that is respectful to all of us that have worked on land use codes and comprehensive plan. I think that after the last issue, they did include some agricultural representation on their working group, and I think it was listened to. This new alignment was recommended by one of the members of the ag community, and I think it's a fantastic alignment and a good engagement of the ag community from the last time. I think their commitment to ag land protection in Larimer County has been good. I challenged them very vigorously when they were doing their land stewardship to make sure that this was not just for fun, and they've committed to me, and as well as their resolution, that this is more than just for fun. And with their ag land or with their Poudre River Fund, I think it shows a dedication to the Poudre River beyond just the water that they're taking out, but also to other things. I think that this project also demonstrates land that they're protecting that fits our LISA process, the Our Lands, Our Future process, as well as the potential for implementing voluntary ag districts in an area in the county where we have good critical ag land and ag businesses that provide to our businesses. And I do have one last question. do county staff, when they review these projects, do they find ways to get other communities to pay for projects in our county in a proper way or in a maximized way?
Zach, thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your comments. And I'm sure staff will make note of that question. Preston Brown, is that person online?
Yeah, it looks like Preston Brown is online. I will unmute you and allow you to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, please introduce yourself for the record, sir.
Great, thank you. My name is Preston Brown, resident of Larimer County. I'm a river restoration practitioner and have studied the Poudre River as well as other rivers along the Front Range. And I've heard it said that certainly our rivers face a kind of a mild health crisis, if you will, and the Poudre is definitely not an exception to that. This proposal really has no substantive change from its original application several years ago. It was rejected on the grounds that, first and foremost, if less impactful options are on the table within the 1041 process, it's the obligation of the applicant to select the least impactful option. So in order to stay compliant with Larimer County's 1041 process, by default, Thornton must choose the lowest impact option for their desired alternative. They haven't done that here, and the commission is well within its right to reject this project once again because it is not compliant with the 1041. Second, Thornton's claim that it's desperate for water is really not bared out when they've spent years on litigation, giving mild, half-hearted attempts to make changes to this proposal, really only to come back with essentially the same proposal that was rejected 6 years ago. The irony is that if they were really in a hustle to develop this water, they would have gone with the cheapest option, the most simple option, the least impactful option, of which was their brainchild, and that is the Poudre River option. So Thornton has an opportunity here to do what is compliant with 1041, select the cheapest option, one that is honestly a major benefit to the river. Thornton has a major opportunity to boost the health and flow and function of the river, something that would stand out tremendously by selecting the Poudre River option, much more than the collaborative option discussed by the Colorado Water Trust, which sure is beneficial, but really what Thornton has the opportunity to do is make an immensely beneficial, impactful difference by selecting the Poudre River option. So I ask you commissioners to table this for additional public input. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Gail Murray Kimmel. There. Hello, Gail Murray.
Hello, Commissioners. Ooh, that's live. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Could you please identify yourself for the record?
Gail Marie Kimmel, Larimer County.
Thank you.
I am here to support the Poudre River option. The previous speaker did a little bit more homework than I was able to. Says it's the least impactful, the cheapest, sort of the smartest option. And I guess I'm concerned with the 45-minute presentation that I just sat through, that the Poudre River was just set aside. And nothing that affects water in northern Colorado does not impact the Poudre River. I think we have a great opportunity here to restore and heal the river by taking the Poudre River option. I've heard discussion now about property rights and water rights, but I want to raise up for us tonight the rights of nature. This is a global movement that recognizes that ecosystems, including rivers, have an intrinsic right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate, just as we human beings have those rights. Rights of nature is a holistic recognition that all life, all ecosystems are deeply entwined, and that the health of our rivers is also about the health of our communities. In this critical decade for addressing climate emergency and biodiversity loss, I urge my county commissioners to act for the health of our river ecology and for all the species, including the humans that depend upon it. Please, this is an opportunity to act as guardians and kin. It is past time to balance what is good for us and for our neighbors in Thornton with the health and well-being of trout and kingfisher, humans, and all the present and future generations that share this Poudre River watershed. Again, happy Earth Day. It is a good day to pause this process and act like wise ancestors now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail Marie. The next person on the list is Liam Meyer. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Liam Myers, and I'm an engineering and sustainability student at Colorado State. I've had the pleasure of residing in Larimer County for a little under 6 years now. I'm deeply concerned about our climate change preparedness as it relates to the natural and built environment of Larimer County. On this Earth Day 2024, I asked the board to weigh whether the second go at the Thornton Pipeline project equitably addresses all applicable sections of the land use code and meets the criteria outlined within. The city of Thornton had the opportunity to minimize its impact on Larimer County, its citizens, and its natural resources more than a decade ago and failed to consider the Poudre River option then and again today. In reading the new 1041 permit application, it's largely indistinguishable from the previous version. Former county commissioners denied the previous application based on the standards of review in the LUC. It failed to meet 7 of the 12 review criteria points then and again today. Weighing the precedent previously set with this project, the previous application was denied unanimously in 2019. This was then upheld by the district court and again by the Court of Appeals. The Poudre River option is no pipe dream. It would be considerably lower in cost, appropriately mitigates harm to sensitive riparian and aquatic wildlife, and avoids potential fish die-off events and increased flooding. The overarching purpose of the LUC sets a clear code to preserve, protect, and improve the health, safety, and general welfare of Larimer County residents. This project satisfies none of these areas. Please deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Next, we have Dolores Williams. Welcome, Dolores.
Trying to hurry. I'm Dolores Williams from Larimer County and Fort Collins. I'm just kind of sitting there with wanting to add things all the time, but first of all, it is about the Poudre River. That just don't ever say that again. This is all about the Poudre River. This pipeline, 10 miles, but I think it's 40 inches wide. This will be huge disruption, if not in the construction. And the 1041 says Larimer County residents should not be disrupted. We're saying, I hear, only 17 families will be disrupted. There are 17 properties, and if you're one of those, it's not nothing. The rural people are always getting hit with the stuff, and unless you are the one disrupted, it's quite okay. I think that Thornton did buy a bunch of farms and let them dry so they would be able to do this and remove them from productivity And that means we have less food as we get to have more and more people. The water quality can be mitigated, and it's being done hugely in LA, where they are even able to clean water for drinking with sewer water. I mean, really, as bad as you can get, you can clean it up. But we learn. Thornton bought agriculture water, not brand new water from the mouth of the Pooter. And so now they're trying to change that. That's not what we want, what we got. We want, we want to, make our own rules. Now, I think it's time, I've sat through every one of these meetings, and I think it's time we stop talking about the same thing over and over, bringing the same, you remember that it was decided, as was mentioned before, that the cleanest, less noisy, less disruptive is to send the water down the Pooter. And meanwhile, in these, 6 years, the world has gotten drier, and it's going to get drier. We are going to have less water, not more water, not even the same water that we have. Now, that does mean that the house builders should build houses all the way to Kansas, because there's just not that much water. So please, just remember you already thought this through and voted some years ago, and things haven't changed at all. They've gotten worse. So please, please save the Pooter and let this place be nice and quiet. Bye.
Good evening, Gerald.
Yes, my name is Jerry Palt. I live at the Hill community, east of I-25 along County Road 52, directly in the path of the pipeline. Budweiser already has a large force main in County Road 52 running east of this road, and NISP is planning to install their massive pipeline there also. And this is the main access to our community. I'm not sure that co-location is a smart idea in this area. I'm not even sure all the pipes will fit. So I'm here to ask the commissioners to deny Thornton's application. A lot of discussion tonight about how large the application is, and that's true, and it takes a lot of time. And it was mentioned that the last board established a working group, and I was a member of that group, and we met to review Thornton's application and make recommendations to the board. We discovered many things that were not true as represented and were not factual, and we made recommendations for alternative routings, including the viability of the Pooter River option and others, like the Northern Canal route. And in the final analysis, the board chose to deny that application. I agree that this application looks essentially identical to the previous one. I went to the open house last August that was discussed here tonight, and I saw something entirely different that was represented in the video. I saw residents leaving many markups, comments, suggestions on the maps for alternative ideas and routings, and I didn't hear any of that addressed by Thornton's comments tonight. So I asked, where are those maps today? And I hope that there's time for this commission to see some of those comments and evaluate them. Thornton continues to ignore information that does not suit their purpose and only paints a picture of that which will, and they have made no substantive changes to their applications since the last time. The 1041 process is meant to give the local residents a voice in the approval process for this kind of development, and it's a requirement that there be some benefit to Larimer County. Running the water down the Pooter River to help this important ecosystem has been clearly shown to provide this benefit. Thornton will process its water through a water treatment facility regardless of how it gets there, just like every other municipality across the country, and they can absolutely do the same thing here. If they chose to be a good neighbor, that's what they would be proposing. They just don't want to. And they have never meaningfully ever proposed any alternative conveyance methodology that I'm aware of, and I've been through all these processes. The previous board took the time to fully
Gerald,
understand this, and I
forgive
hope
me
you
if,
do the same.
could you kind of wrap it, a closing sentence, please?
Okay.
I'm just trying to be
I
fair.
guess I want to say that rather than adapt and compromise, Thornton is back with the same old approach, attempting to wear us out and steamroll the process. A wrong decision now will be irreversible, and so I hope you get this right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nancy York, is she here? She was here earlier. I'm sorry, what?
Someone said she went home.
Oh, all right. Then we'll move on to the next person, and that's Lori Rock. Is that person here? Is that person online, Jenny?
See Lori online.
Looks like she's not online either.
Okay. The next person, Ashlyn Nelson, is here. Welcome.
I'm Ashlyn Nelson. I'm another student at CSU. I deeply have a love for this river and its surrounding area. For me, I'm personally concerned as the Poudre River is Colorado's only wild and scenic river and is designated as a National Heritage Area. I want to make sure that it is protected as policy says that it will be. In the presentation, they made it clear that it does not impact the river. However, the water is being diverted from the river, that is clear. So it does have something to do with the natural beauty. On Thornton's website, they mentioned that this diversion has been the center point for diversion for over 130 years, and that they bought the water rights back in the 80s. Water is being diverted, and with the increasing threat of climate change, the impact on the integrity of the area's natural and cultural heritage must be acknowledged in this case. There's no doubt that human development will continue to grow in Colorado. I want to state that, and I know Thornton has done a great job in their community of having a small water footprint. However, my fear is how long can we go using only one resource before there's nothing left? It comes back to the battle between human development and land stewardship. For hundreds of years, the Poudre has been a catalyst and oftentimes a leader for water law in the U.S. It would be a real shame to change that now. I want to say I'm grateful to Thornton for coming back with new additions and change after their first plan was not a healthy solution. It gives me hope that our system is working, but I really hope that we continue this trend and continue to help it work. I ask that we have a pause on the development to review the project, seeing that, as they said, there's so much change that have been brought forward. We are stewards of this land, Fort Collins and Thornton. It's a National Heritage Area for a reason. If we come together to care for the Poudre as it runs through Larimer County, implementing policies to keep it clean, then I ask, why is the Poudre River alternative not a viable solution? I please that you consider us coming together with Thornton's new information to acknowledge the alternative option again, just as Thornton's proposal was given a second chance, and allow us some time to come and review this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashlyn. Chad Murphy, is Chad here? Hey. Good evening, welcome.
Larimer Board of County Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Chad Murphy, and I am here tonight on behalf of Hines Interests. Hines is a real estate investment and development firm. We've had a presence in the state of Colorado since the mid-1980s and have built dozens of projects around the state, including well-known buildings such as the Cash Register Building in downtown Denver and 1144 15th. We are actively and currently working on several residential projects around the state, both for sale and for rent. Specifically related to tonight's hearing, Hines owns approximately 800 acres in the city of Thornton, in a property known as Parterre. I am personally an invested partner in this project. We purchased this land in 2018 with the intent of building a master plan community with up to 4,000 homes and roughly 100 acres of mixed uses to meet the growing demand of Colorado's housing market. The Thornton Water Project is critical to ensure that this community can be built like dozens of others in Thornton, and denying the Thornton Water Project would massively impact the Colorado economy for a couple of reasons. First, Colorado needs more housing. The state has an affordability housing crisis, and it's evident throughout our municipalities. Two, jobs will be impacted. New communities such as Parterre generate hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue, construction jobs, not to mention future residents and their economic multiplier effect. And three, if Colorado is closed for business, fewer people and fewer employers will come to our state, which will send our economy into a downward spiral. There are many examples of local governments working cooperatively to move water from one point to another around our state to support its growth. Denver gets its water from Lake Dillon, as I'm sure most of us all know. Thornton absolutely needs this water, as many of its future residents that we're building housing for need as well. So I want to echo the property rights comment that was made earlier tonight, and therefore we strongly encourage you to vote yes on the approval of the Thornton Water Project and keep Colorado moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Next, we have Zell Cantrell via Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Zell, we can. Would you please introduce yourself? And you have approximately 3 minutes.
Yeah. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Zell Cantrell. I reside in Denver, Colorado. Thank you in advance for your time. Much like Chad, I'm with a true real estate investment firm based in Denver, Colorado. We're the True Life Companies. Our vision is to provide attainable housing so that our children and grandchildren both can live and prosper in the same places we do. I trust most of us here tonight are aware at some level of the significant housing shortage being faced across our country and specifically here in Colorado. While there are many issues associated with the housing shortage, this evening we are here to specifically address the lack of access to Thornton's water and the threat to many residential housing projects that could potentially provide attainable housing options for those who cannot afford to live in the higher price areas in our Front Range communities. Thornton is a community that has always provided attainable housing options for people looking to own their own houses within the Denver metro area. Delays associated with the Thornton Water Project have not only directly impacted the True Life Company's ability to deliver several hundred housing units as part of our East Lake Station TOD project, but numerous other potential residential developments in Thornton, Colorado. I believe Colorado has a proud history of communities working together. Regional cooperation is always an important value. While we prosper, we prosper when we work together and acknowledge the needs of people in areas beyond our own community. Government should not take or prevent access to the property of another entity. This is a fundamental principle in our country and our state. And I think we should all understand that water pipelines are not a novel concept. And many communities already access their water via pipeline. Chad talked about Denver. Other cities such as Aurora, Greeley, Colorado Springs are already implementing pipelines to successfully bring quality water to their communities. So as you carefully consider approval of the 1041 permit that would allow for construction of the Thornton Water Project, please consider the need for housing and that the decision you make this evening will impact the ability to deliver housing so that our children and grandchildren can live and prosper in the same places we do. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Zell. The next person is Patty Clifford. Is Patty here? Yes. Good evening. And folks, as much as you're able to, it would be great if you could do your best to cue yourself up when you see your name coming up. Hello.
Hello. I'm Patty Clifford, and my husband and I live in Woody Creek, just off Highway 1. The last time Thornton came to our doorstep, our Larimer County commissioners, including you, denied and saved Larimer County from the jaws of Adams County. This evening, it's up to the three of you to honor the oath you took when you became commissioners. And I quote, to represent the citizens of Larimer County. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Next is Mick Andres here. Again, folks, if you could check your name. So we have Bill Timpson, William Timpson next, if you could be ready to go. And then after William, we have Chuck, and that would really help move the process. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mick Andres, and I believe that the Poudre River is the most valuable asset in Larimer County. I would like to see the river run wild and free from Cameron Pass to the Gulf of Mexico. However, 5 separate court rulings have established that the Thornton Water Project must utilize the Larimer County Canal and must originate within the water supply and storage company system. The September 2022 Colorado Court of Appeals judgment further states that the board cannot compel Thornton to evaluate the Shield Street Poudre River alternative. Public input from the previous 1041 application did have a positive impact. The current application eliminates roughly 17 miles of pipeline, impacts fewer private properties, and moves the pump station to a less obtrusive location. It also specifies the exact alignment and avoids use of the corridor approach. As a result, the only realistic option now is for the board to approve what may well be the least popular permit application in the history of Larimer County. It's time to move forward. Larimer County must establish within the planning department a full-time professional position of river assets coordinator. Obviously, the coordinator would work with natural resources, open lands, and the Larimer County Conservation Corps, and the coordinator would also collaborate with Fort Collins natural areas and other downstream communities, would establish and adopt a river program, inventory and promote opportunities for community organizations to engage in river enhancement projects, and work with the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed, the Nature Conservancy, the National Forest Service, and private property owners on the restoration of the Cameron Peak burn scar. The coordinator would actively recruit willing parties in order to acquire critical lands and water rights or secure permanent protection through conservation easements and development offsets. These efforts should focus on the intermittent and seasonal tributaries that provide the subsurface flows that recharge the river during the late summer and fall. The county should engage with the Colorado Water Trust in the Poudre Flows project, collaborate with Greater Outdoors Colorado and Colorado Parks and Wildlife to increase stream connectivity at existing diversion structures, and proactively pursue the acquisition and transfer of in-stream flow rights to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. It is highly probable that the Northern Integrated Supply Project will proceed. If it does, the impacts will be devastating. We must act urgently and diligently to preserve and protect every possible square foot of land and every cubic foot of water within the Poudre River watershed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Next, we have William Timpson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
And then after that, if Chuck is, did we already? Chuck Rhodes, Gary Jackson, Tim Carney. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Bill Timpson, resident of this county. I've been studying this for approximately 30 years, the issue of sustainability. It's complex, It requires energy, it requires study, it requires thoughtfulness, it requires cooperation. It can't be one way or the highway. There must be time devoted to this. And I have to say, the report on the Poudre River option reflects all of that. It's thoughtful, it cites the relevant sources internationally, not just locally. It reflects the complexity of these issues with climate change looming in the background. It demands cooperation and not just an answer today for this side or the other side. It requires creativity and some rationality to work through difficult subjects. A lot of my work involves case studies, where it's not a simple answer like we see in colleges or schools, where it's, yes or no, right or wrong, multiple choice. These are complex issues and they take time and energy to reflect on. And I think the best recommendation I could see, given all this, is to take time out to put this, to table this, to get some more eyes and ears and heads on this. There are a lot of long-range implications. I've been spending a lot of time in overseas, and I'm really struck with some nations, in particular Nordic countries, how they come together across great divides and are willing to take on difficult issues and find the resources and energy and expertise to move forward. And I think that is reflected in what I see in the Poudre River option. And I would encourage you to take the time to step back and reflect, involve citizens, and look seriously at what's been written, what's been published, and how what you do here could make a real difference in going forward. So I thank you for your time and wish you luck. Take care.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have, is Chuck here, Chuck Rhodes? All right. Is that person online perhaps, Jenny?
I don't see a Chuck Rhodes, but Chuck Rhodes, if you're online, please raise your hand. No Chuck Rhodes.
Then we'll move on to Carrie Jackson. Is Carrie here? And then I know Tim is here.
Commissioner, I have a request to defer my comments until our next get-together. I believe that's on May 6th.
Of course, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you kindly.
You're more than welcome. So please make note of that, staff. We can
Yes, we've noted that. Thank you.
precisely. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Commissioner. And hello to the others. I'm familiar with Commissioner John. My name's Tim Carney. I live in Larimer County, just north of the city of Fort Collins. I have a lot of experience. I've been in this community about 50 years. And I've got a background in agriculture, conservation easements. I've done pipelines, project management. I've worked with literally hundreds of pipelines around the state of Colorado. I've worked with interstate water issues and the Republican River, the Arkansas, and the Colorado. And so I want to start out by saying I support Thornton's right to utilize the water rights that they purchased. I do object to the proposed pipeline for the segment F transmission method that they are stating is their preferred route. They're going to build a pumping plant of 3 million gallons a day. I work in round numbers, so I don't know how exactly. It's more than that, I believe. I think that's 9.2 acre feet a day, over 3,350 acre feet a year. Now, I may not be one of these fancy suits back here and engineers and whatnot, but when you take 3,350 plus acre feet a year out of the basin, you are going to impact the river, the community, the landscape, and the watershed. This is a 42-inch steel pipe and its installation. There's significant carbon issues associated with a pumping plant, the steel manufacturing, the installation, the maintenance, and the operations of this system as proposed. And I'm aware of at least 3 federally funded farm and ranch land protection program conservation easements on agricultural properties that are within a mile or two of the proposed pipeline, and that's public record. I believe there'll be disturbance to wetlands, wildlife, impacts to plants of cultural and significance as well as native plants, including edible species that are along this proposed pipeline route that a lot of us don't really like to publicize so that we can keep them special. They're rare. There's going to be noxious weed impacts, including leafy spurge, hoary cress, whitetop, knapweeds, Canada thistle, purple loosestrife, that are alluded to in the application package with, glossy images from the Extension Service about them. But I know damn well when you open up a pipeline that big through that corridor, the disturbance is going to be significant and long lasting. You don't just reclaim this like paving over it. So I have 3 recommendations. Okay. I think we should run the water through the Poudre River. That's my first recommendation. Second would be run it through the existing water supply and storage infrastructure, which would reduce, both those reduce the carbon impacts, or co-locate the entire line with the NISP pipeline. And
Thank you.
This objection to litigation can, once it's settled, they can use the
Thank you.
infrastructure until it's settled to run the water.
Again,
Thank
I'm
you.
not meaning to be disrespectful, Tim,
No,
but
no, I got carried away.
thank you. Thank you, Josie. I presume you're Josie.
Yes. My name is Josie Farwell. I'm a student at Colorado State University studying human dimensions of natural resources with a minor in conservation biology. I'm here because I care deeply about the Poudre River, not because I'm getting paid. As a natural resources student, climate change looms over me and my peers' shoulders daily. We're told that it's up to our generation when it is not us who has done the worst. I really value sustainability, and I do not understand why that is not Thornton's main concern. If you want more houses or whatever, preserving and regenerating what we have is the only way you're going to get what you want. The rights of nature are also our rights because we need nature to survive. This project may put money into the developers' pockets, but the Poudre River is priceless to me. As a member of the younger community in Fort Collins, I'd like to see this river flourish and last my lifetime. Cooperation does take time, and that's why I think we need to put this issue on hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. Is Alexander Ford here? Then, Patricia, you're here. Hello.
Hello, thank you. I'm Patricia Babbitt, and I'm not going to say a lot. I want to say we should keep it going down the river. I don't understand why Thornton keeps saying that's not an option when it was proposed by them originally. And I will say, just listening to them with their numbers, they're talking about a 10.4 mile pipeline that will affect 119.2 acres of land use that they're associating with the pipeline. And they're saying that the impacts are expected to be minimal, and they found no critical habitat that would be affected. I'm very familiar with a more personal project that Thornton had some hands in. It was only 15 acres. There were golden eagles there that are supposed to be nationally protected. There was a rare salamander. People spoke up about it, and they said, oh no, they're not there, but people had proof that they were there. That was 15 acres, so they're talking 119.2 acres and saying it won't affect critical habitats. I know it will affect, every habitat is critical. And I just want to agree with the woman who said we need to think about the rights of nature. And I'm a little tired of hearing how people need the river, and we're interdependent, and the animals, the wildlife, the plants need it too. And if we're not careful, we're all going to be impacted. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Are you Betsy? Thank you so much. Hello.
We're hurrying. Hi, I'm Betsy Cox. I'm a Larimer County resident. Thanks for your service tonight. I was on the fence as to whether or not I would speak tonight, and then I remembered how annoyed I always am. Back in 2017, Thornton announced to our neighborhood and all the surroundings out of Douglas Road that, ta-da, we want a 48-inch pipeline in the back of the road behind your house, and we're going to put a pump house across the street. We fought that, and Douglas Road was taken off the table. Then they turned their sights to County Road 56. So here we are 7 years later. All these years, Thornton employees have continued to be paid, as have our own Larimer County staff involved. But we, affected residents, have had to use our own hard-earned money to fight this all these years. Nothing has changed. Larimer County continues to be put in a position of accepting concessions from Thornton instead of the other way around. There are still no benefits for Larimer County, and I will bet many affected by this project wake in the night with a thud, just like my husband and I did when this project was first introduced. That's not right. At the Planning Commission hearing, 2 points jumped out at me. First, so we know, Thornton has had those shares of water that have, for hundreds of years, or 100 years, have been released into but hasn't been released into the river. Now, the water law insists that the water shall be taken from their diversion. I don't understand it. The second point, that Larimer County is responsible for Thornton's inability to offer affordable housing. I don't even know what to say about that. Only somehow I don't believe anybody on Thornton's staff is waking up with a thud. I don't really care what Thornton does with their water shares, but I'm sure they'll be fueled by housing that adds the most to their tax base, not affordable housing. I ask that you deny Thornton's 1041 application tonight. Their gallons of water can continue to run through the canals to the county line if need be. Thanks.
Thank you, Betsy. Next person is Jade. Jade Lipman. Is Jade here? Glenna. Well, I guess we should check. Well, if the person indicated in person, I guess they're not.
Yeah, they're not online either.
Then we go with Glenna Brissy. Is Glenna? Oh, hello, Glenna. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Glenna Brissy. We've been in Larimer County for 22 years, but my family has been in the ranch farm community in Colorado since 1900s. The 1041 is to protect specific geographic areas of natural resources and historical significance. I think that's what the Poudre River is and has been for millions of years. Therefore, Thornton should use the Poudre River, which is our gem of wild natural rivers, as a conveyance for the water rather than put it in a pipeline. The 1041 proposal destroys private property for years and gives Thornton right-of-way privileges to individual forever. They'll have right-of-way. When Thornton purchased the water rights and dried up prime farming land, they did not purchase the right-of-way on our local farmers and ranchers or our roads. Thornton has made no effort, except in their very first proposal to Larimer County, to use the Poudre River. Their only interest is to pipe prime quality water out of Larimer County, period. We have no use of it ever again. We attended Thornton's open houses, and we recommended to them the water route. I did not hear any of that tonight. So how does their proposal benefit us in Larimer County or the Poudre River? I would like to know. I haven't heard anything from them. It is harming our landowners and their productivity for years. Not only is this proposal giving Thornton prime water, it is giving, of course, Thornton the right-of-way privileges in Larimer County over our private property and the landowners forever. The property owners in Larimer County will be forced to comply and obey Thornton's construction needs and their future needs for access to the pipeline. How is that going to benefit our private landowners or people in our county? It is not our obligation to provide Thornton with more housing businesses to increase their tax revenue or water rights.
Glenda, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to have you please deny the 1041.
Understood. Thank you. Elaine Spencer, hello.
I'm Elaine Spencer. I live in the Larimer County. As I listen to all of this, I appreciate the need for affordable housing and I understand the urgency. But a lot of this urgency is driven by Thornton themselves, and it's not our obligation to go along with that. We don't have to do that. And they are also concerned about the quality of the water if it were to run down the Poudre River. It seems to me that they could have built a purification plant with all the money that they have spent on litigation over the years. The delays that are with this project are not from Larimer County, they're from Thornton, because Thornton refuses to accept the only legitimate thing down the Poudre River. I'm also concerned about the presumptuousness of building the whole thing up to, except for, oh my gosh, Larimer County, we have to have it now, we have to have it right now. That's presumptuous on their part. It's not our problem, it's theirs. At the open house, I went and I talked to some representative, I don't know who, from Thornton, and I was expressing my opinion, and he just looked at me and he said, this is going to happen. I hope you will deny it.
Thank you, Elaine. Good evening, Larry.
Hi there. My name is Larry Maui. I'm I'm a landowner on the south side of 52. And this pipeline will probably interfere with about a mile of my farm. Thornton also says that they are going to go into Highway 52 in order to miss my trees and my house on number 5. They said they're going to close the highway or County Road 52 for only 10 days. This is a major project. There are 2 Budweiser pipelines in Highway 52 right now. There's also a natural gas line in Highway 52. And there's also a domestic water line in County Road 52. Thornton is not telling the truth that they can put another 40-inch pipeline in County Road 52 along with two Budweiser lines. That's just not going to happen. And also trying to beat Northern Water to not take my house. They are going to take at least 25 trees down, and these are big pine trees and fruit trees and everything else on County Road 52. Thornton is not telling the truth of how they don't put that pipeline down County Road 52. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Terry? Oh, hello, Terry.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Terry Betkovich. I live on North County Road 13, right adjacent to 56. So I'd like to speak to that area specifically. The first thing I want to do is comment on Thornton's Criteria A. The project will mitigate impact to properties held by owners. So I went to the meetings and they vote. The people on Highway 1 didn't want the electric lines. The people on Douglas Road, so we got those. The people on Douglas Road, they didn't want pipeline, so they're back at us again. We're not the utility corridor. We don't want to be a utility corridor. And our properties, we don't have as many votes because per Larimer County law, we have to keep our acreages 20 acres. So we don't get as many votes as the people on Douglas Road or along Highway 1, they have more people. So, you know, we get dumped on, basically. Second thing, if they were going to do this down 56, the water table is real high. The reservoirs are real high right now. I told them if you want to check the levels, now's the time to do it. I've hit water digging post holes at 4 feet down. Oil company has hit water laying lines at 4 feet down. Are they going to tell me they're going to bury that thing in the road and not hit water? They're going to hit water. So one other thing, return pipeline with PFAS in it, where is that going to go? When they got their polluted water with North Platte and the Poudre River combined, when they return that water to the river, are they going to return it north of Fort Collins? Are we going to get their pollution? I don't know where that's supposed to go. The last thing I'll have to read here, and I'll put it in an email, and say, I will just say, after living at my current address for almost 40 years, I feel this route for a pipeline is fraught with problems. Along that dam on East County Road 56 is a quagmire mix of not enough room, eroding soil from the Larimer County Canal, a high water table, multiple water, oil, and gas lines, 2 huge underground tunnels that were just refurbished a few years ago, connecting all 3 reservoirs, Annex 8, Windsor 8, and Elder. They cross under East County Road 56, not to mention a spillway that will be right above that pipeline. That said, Thornton's representative, Emily Hunt, contacted me to lease a triangle of land to try and cross from 56 over to their property on 56. And I thought, the road goes down, and then it kind of goes up, so that's a quagmire down there. And I thought, they have property on the other side of the spillway. Why are they wanting to buy mine? And it's because they know it's going to be an engineering feat to get in front of that spillway. I just feel this is a mistake, and I encourage you to vote no.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Is Tom here? Tom McCulloch? Then it looks like there are 2 other people listed via Zoom. Is Tom Moore online, Jenny?
I've just unmuted Tom. You may speak.
Good evening. My name is Tom Moore. I actually live in Thornton. I've been a custom home builder for about 17 years in the Denver metro area. And I'm here to say that, housing prices are complicated. Affordability isn't only about supply, it's about interest rates and gas prices and inflation. Water is not the limiting factor for development in Adams County. There you go. I've heard the gentleman from Hines describe all the fear mongering, the entire economy will go into tailspill, all the jobs will disappear if this one pipeline doesn't get built, and that is total nonsense. Housing crisis isn't about water, it's about the things I just mentioned. But if Thornton really were super interested in getting water ASAP, what they would do is they would have gone with the Poudre River option from day one. That's the cheapest, it's the simplest, could have been done years ago, and I'm a ratepayer in Adams County. I want to do what is best for our neighbors. Yeah, I don't live in Larimer County, but I want to be good neighbors. We live in Colorado. We all live here not because of the beautiful sprawling houses and subdivisions. We live here because of the health of our natural areas, the rivers, our farms. We respect private property. I disagree with Thornton's approach. I've lived in Thornton for 12 years, Adams County for almost my whole life, and I am just upset that this is the way Thornton has decided to go about this. But that being said, I want to say to you commissioners that we can do better in Thornton. We want to do better. We want to be good neighbors to Larimer County. We don't care. This isn't the housing crisis is not just because of this pipeline. Don't listen to the gentleman from Hines that he's paid to be here. But they say our grandchildren want to be considered and want to be thankful that they have houses. They're going to have houses. Things are going to get built. That's not the issue. But once this pipeline's developed, that water's never going back in the river. So do the best thing for our grandchildren is to keep the water in the river, because once it's taken out, it will never return. So the best thing to do in this case is reject this 1041, tell Thornton to go back to their first proposal, which was the best, and that their own constituents who live in Adams County do not want this pipeline built. We want the Poudre River option. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We have Adam Zard. I believe he's online.
Adam, you may unmute and speak.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. My name is Adam Zard. I am a housing developer with Maker Housing Partners. For those unfamiliar, Maker is the housing authority for Adams County, where we own, operate, and develop affordable housing options across Adams County, which obviously includes Thornton. As a public housing authority, we are geographically limited to where we can build new housing units. And Thornton, being the sixth most populous city in the entire state, is obviously a very important municipality for us. Over the last 3 years, Maker has built nearly 300 new affordable housing units while renovating an additional 200 units, thereby providing over 1,500 residents with safe, affordable, and decent housing options. In that time, we've also purchased a property in Thornton near the East Lake TOD station, hired an architect and contractor who designed an 80-unit affordable apartment complex, and negotiated easements with both an irrigation ditch company as well as a local school district. However, unfortunately, our progress has stopped as we await the resolution with Thornton and Larimer County. This pause to our own development delays brings much needed 80 units to the Front Range. And as we have heard, Maker is not the only developer in this same situation. So we all know housing affordability has become one of the most important and imminent challenges impacting all residents of Colorado across every age and income demographic. Additionally, housing affordability is not exclusive to Denver or Boulder. It impacts every community in every county and every corner of our great state. Fortunately, the solution to solving our affordability crisis is simple. Increase the supply of housing units across the housing continuum. This includes bringing affordable and senior communities like those developed by Maker, but also market rate apartments and single family homes. Simply put, every housing unit needs water and every development needs coordination with government officials. As such, we urge Larimer County to continue to work with the residents of Larimer County as well as the city of Thornton to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. From the list that we have before us, it does not look like anyone else has signed up. Therefore, as we discussed earlier, we will keep the public comment period portion of the hearing open, and we will continue this here.
Commissioner Kovalis, you may, because a lot of the people who are on Zoom didn't have the opportunity to sign up at the door tonight the way people who are in person did, we may want to do a final call for anyone who's on Zoom who may want to raise their hand who hasn't yet. So
yes, thank you, Rebecca.
If you're on Zoom and you're watching and you would like to provide public comment tonight, please use the raise hand button to indicate that you'd like to speak.
Thank you.
Not seeing any hands.
So, again, our intention is to keep the public comment portion of this hearing open. The next opportunity will be May 6th, Monday. We'll start at 6 o'clock. We will continue this hearing. Frank, do we need to make a motion to that effect, or is it sufficient just to say we're going to?
Commissioner?
Oh, yes,
I just wanted to
please.
see if you wanted to see if anybody, did you want to see if anybody present wants to speak that's in the audience?
That's what I would normally do, if you would like me to do that. The reason I have not done that is because we were going off of the sign-up sheet, and we'll have an opportunity in 2 weeks. Is there someone here who wishes to offer comment who may not be able to be here on May 6th? Well, then I reckon you ought to come on up, and please forgive me. Thank you, Commissioner. My apologies to everyone. I'm trying to keep us on track. And good evening. Could you please tell us your name?
Commissioners, my name is Stephen Farr. It's spelled P-H-A-R-R. I'm a resident of Larimer County. I think my comments are going to be pretty short. One side is talking about saving the pooter and using the original pooter option. A lot of other talk has come out about the need for housing and the need for water. Nobody seems to have chosen to recognize the elephant in the room, so I will. It is not save the pooter and have no housing. It's save the pooter and take the water now. The water is there to be taken on the pooter option. So we are not holding up the housing industry. We're not stifling economies. We are protecting a river. And the option that provides the least disturbance is there, the Poudre River option. So nobody is saying Larimer cannot have the water. It's their water. Legally, they can take it. Here, take it out of the Poudre, which is the least disruptive option. Now, there may be other things in the background. The pipeline will run east through a few communities who just might run out of water in the next few years. And there would be a potential supply going through that pipeline by those communities. that they may be able to purchase. That's kind of floating around in the back of my head. So, you know, we can give everybody what they want. The pipeline, or save the Pooter and the water for Thornton. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
All right, colleagues. Well, the question I asked earlier is, we're trying to do this in a way to honor that it's the first night of Passover. If I saw a hand raised, are you able to come back on May 6th or? I don't know. Yeah. Well, then let's,
It'll only take a minute.
pardon?
It'll only take a minute.
Why don't you come on down?
Okay.
And again, I'm not meaning to be rude or
I know,
disrespectful.
we're all tired.
Well, yes, and I thought we kind of had a process.
My name is Alice Bergeron, and I live in Fort Collins. And just from listening to the presentation, they mentioned no net loss of wetlands, no loss of natural resources, and that just brings so many questions to my mind. Who's going to determine whether there was a loss of wetlands? How do you define that? Who's going to determine what a natural resource is and how it's going to be lost? And if I see that there's a loss of wetlands and everyone in Fort Collins says, oh, there's a loss of wetlands, do we have to go to court to get Thornton to mitigate those problems? I just see a real problem here with these kind of phrases, and that's all I have to say. Bye.
Alice, thank you. All right, so I believe I'm going to put my foot down here. It is 9:11 p.m. We will continue the hearing on Monday, May 6th. And once again, Frank, I pose the question, do we need a motion to do that, or is it good enough what I just said?
I think that because you've already published that and talked about it, it's already been noticed that it's going to be continued until May 6th. I think that's adequate. I don't think you, excuse me, I don't think you need a separate motion.
Okay.
I did want to just make sure, my understanding was that the continuance was to allow people who have not yet had the opportunity to comment, not people who have already commented to come back and comment again.
Yeah, yes, and could you repeat that again, because you weren't talking entirely into the mic? So we're looking for new, it's not a repeat of folks who have had a chance to testify tonight, and ideally, well, say the rest of what you said.
That's accurate. The board has determined that it's going to be continued until May 6th at 6 p.m., at which time public comment will recommence, so people can comment that have not yet had the opportunity to comment, but those who have already commented don't get to comment again.
Thank you, Frank, and we've kept track of everything. So thank you to my colleagues. Thanks to everyone who has taken out the time this evening. Please drive safely. If you're celebrating Passover, hopefully you can still celebrate a little bit or honor that holiday. And indeed, at 9:13 p.m., we are adjourned.